Chapter 2027. In the heaven-splitting city there was a very large tea garden. Countless magical spiritual ingredients and ancient teas were planted there. The fragrance of the tea permeated the air, but it was sealed within the tea garden by an ancient formation. It had long been bought by the wealthy Master Heavenly Fox. Now it was bustling with noise and excitement. Now that he was a godmyth, young Master Heavenfox seemed to be the #1 person in the younger generation. Furthermore, he was currently inviting people of the same Tao to his tea garden to discuss the Tao with many of the other young elite cultivators. Many people came because of the Master Heavenly Fox's reputation. Even without an invitation, the tea garden welcomed everyone. Many people wanted to find out more about the Master Heavenly Fox's experience in stepping into the myth realm. To many experts at the peak of the profound death realm, this was undoubtedly the most valuable experience. Proving Tao was still too far away for them. Stepping into the myth realm was the most meaningful thing at the moment. Some of the experts who had received invitations naturally came one after another, causing the tea garden to be bustling with activity and people to swarm about in a short period of time. There were experts walking around in every corner of the tea garden. Even the weakest among them had already stepped into the profound death realm. In the outside world, they were all big shots and held real power. However, they did not dare to act presumptuously in the tea garden because they had to maintain their respect for a legendary expert and the Heavenly Fox young master. He had already stepped into the Paong realm at such a young age. At his age, he could be said to be immortal and invincible. His achievements in the future were limitless. No matter what, they had to maintain their respect for such a person. I didn't expect that the first person to step into the myth realm in this generation would be the Master Heavenly Fox. What a surprise! But the Master Heavenly Fox was already very powerful 1,000 years ago. It's not surprising that he would be the first to enter. In fact, all those famous geniuses are peerless figures. It's not surprising that any of them would be the first to enter. Just wait and see. This is just the beginning. The prelude to a new era is slowly opening. I think there are some people who are waiting. Isn't Jun Dingtian rumored to have stepped into the myth realm a long time ago? It's just that his real body has always been outside, so no one could verify the authenticity of this rumor. These people are not simple. Any one of them is a peerless figure. In the tea garden, everyone was discussing spiritedly. Even if they were at the same cultivation level, there was still a huge gap between them. I don't know how Yi Shiwen is now. There hasn't been the slightest news for 3 years. Is he really afraid of Ting Yaoyang? That's naturally impossible. Yi Shiwen even dared to slaughter the members of the Divine Alliance's Heaven Wasteland battle team. Why would he be afraid of Ting Yaoyang? Unless Ting Yaoyang has already stepped into the myth realm, Yi Shiwen's strength is definitely enough to suppress him. It is said that he has broken through to a higher realm in closed-door training. When he comes out again, I'm afraid that he will have reached a realm that we can only look up to. Someone lamented. Who is this Yi Shiwen you are talking about? Is it very powerful? Asked one of the old antiques with a puzzled expression. He was dressed in ancient robes, and it was impossible to tell which era he was from. Brother, you must have just come out of seclusion, right? Someone asked the old man with a smile. That's true, but how do you know? The old antique didn't deny it and nodded. This kind of closed-door training was all too common among warriors. It was normal for a closed-door training to last for hundreds or even thousands of years. That's very normal. Yi Shiwen has only risen to prominence for a few years. If he hadn't been in closed-door training, he would have more or less heard of his name. Someone said, if that's the case, he should be very famous. Why haven't I heard of him in the past few years? The old antique continued to ask. What's so strange about that? Although he is extremely powerful, the nameless Tao College is about to open. Many geniuses from various worlds will gather and dazzle for a while. He went into closed-door training 3 years ago. Even now, we still occasionally mention him. Who else would take the initiative to talk about his past glory? The old man said with a smile. However, the only person worth mentioning about the Celestial Fox Master is Bai Jianxing. Sigh, what a pity. He was one of the 2 heroes who could be mentioned in the same breath as the Celestial Fox Master 1,000 years ago. Now, the Celestial Fox Master has already entered the myth realm, but he was seriously injured again. Even if he survives, I'm afraid it'll be even more difficult for him to enter the myth realm. It's almost impossible. It's hard to say, but it's true that the gap between him and the Celestial Fox Master is getting bigger and bigger. The outstanding talent of his generation is almost crippled. This involves the grievances between the demon race and the human race. It's too complicated. The grievances between the 2 races had spread from ancient times to the Xian world. Everyone knew about it. Ting Yaoyang has arrived. After a long announcement, a figure swept over from the void. Everyone fixed their eyes on this person. Who else could it be but Ting Yaoyang? It was a fiery figure. He was extremely domineering, and his hair and beard were like a ball of flames. He was like the overlord of a ball of flames. Everyone's gazes were immediately attracted by him. The hundreds of people near the nameless Tao Academy were naturally the focus of everyone's attention. Among these hundreds of people, more than half of them were there to listen to the Celestial Fox Master's teachings. The remaining half were mostly exploring outside and were not in the nameless Tao Academy. There were less than 20 people left. Only a few people had come to give face to the Celestial Fox Master. The people that the Heavenly Fox Prince truly wanted to recruit were the profound death stage experts like them. Many of these people were rogue cultivators and did not have any influence. If he could recruit them, the Heavenly Fox Prince's organization would quickly develop to an astonishing level. Everyone was well aware of this. What was even more unexpected was that Ting Yaoyang would come. Everyone was well aware that this generation's competition would probably be among these hundreds of people. Among these hundreds of people, whether it was Ting Yaoyang or the Celestial Fox Master, they were both top geniuses. Among these hundreds of people, they belonged to the trendsetters. In the future, they would basically become big shots in the Xian world. Even if these 2 people didn't view each other as enemies, they wouldn't go so far as to walk together. No one had expected that Ting Yaoyang would actually give face to the Celestial Fox Master and personally come. It seems that a mythical expert's face is indeed important. Even Ting Yaoyang has to lower himself to come. Who has ever heard of Ting Yaoyang giving face to anyone before? Exactly. TSK, after stepping into the mythical realm, everything has changed. I have been stuck at this threshold for thousands of years. Sigh, different people have different fates. Just as everyone was discussing, the Celestial Fox Master personally came to welcome them. He was a beautiful young man dressed in a white robe. He looked like an immortal descending to the world. For a man to be described as beautiful, one could see how beautiful he was. However, the crowd did not find it strange. The Celestial Fox Master was born into one of the many races in the myriad heavens that were built on beauty. The women of the Celestial Fox clan were one of the few clans that could compare to the women of the Azura clan. The men were also top-notch handsome men. There were many legends about fox spirits in the myriad heavens. There were both male and female legends about fox spirit. In a normal Tao discussion tea party, there was no one else who could make the Celestial Fox Master personally welcome them other than Ting Yaoyang. This time, it mainly depends on the exchange between the 2. The Celestial Fox Master has already stepped into the mythical realm, and Ting Yaoyang is probably not far from it. The opportunity for these 2 figures to sit down and discuss the Tao is not something that can be missed. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd. At the entrance of the tea garden, a few figures appeared in front of the crowd, causing a commotion. The person in the lead was dressed in a green robe. He had delicate features and exuded a different kind of confidence. Who else could it be but Yi Shiwen? Everyone was in an uproar. Those who did not know who Yi Shiwen was also learned of the existence of such a powerful fellow through word of mouth. Ting Yaoyang's faction had been clamoring for 3 years, allowing many people to get to know him. Moreover, Yi Shiwen's accomplishments before he went into seclusion could be said to be astonishing and glorious. Many people said that even if he did not make any progress in the past 3 years, he was still considered a top expert in the nameless Tao College, where experts were as common as clouds. He was definitely one of the few people who stood at the very top. Just this identity alone was not inferior to the Celestial Fox Master and Ting Yaoyang. Moreover, the matter between him and Ting Yaoyang had almost reached the point where everyone knew about it. Many people were waiting to see the clash between the two parties. Bai Jianxing, who was standing behind him, was no ordinary person either. Although he had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of the Heavenly Fox young master, he was still a well-deserving top expert. Ordinary experts at the peak of the profound death stage were no match for him. This was enough to make everyone look at him in a different light. After all, as far as everyone knew, there was no one who could be a match for the Celestial Fox Master. As in existence at the peak of the profound death realm, he had seriously injured a mythical expert like the Celestial Fox Master. This was already a legendary achievement. It did not matter if he lost. After all, there was still a long way to go in the future. It was hard to say who would win and who would lose in the future. What was the purpose of these two people coming here together? The figures of the Celestial Fox Master and Ting Yaoyang suddenly appeared in everyone's mind. Yi Shiwen and Ting Yaoyang, Bai Jianxing and the Celestial Fox Master. The grudges between the two parties could be said to be known by everyone. This time, many people secretly speculated that Ting Yaoyang had accepted the Celestial Fox Master's invitation. It might be due to the influence of Yi Shiwen and Bai Jianxing's close relationship. Wasn't it said that Bai Jianxing was seriously injured and was at the end of his life? Why does it look like he has not exhausted his lifespan at all? After all, I did not see it with my own eyes. Rumors are after all just rumors. Since these two have come, how will the two in the tea garden deal with them? Chapter 2028. Brother Ting, it looks like the person you've been waiting for is here. The Celestial Fox child glanced at Ting Yaoyang and said, "This coward has finally come out?" Ting Yaoyang sneered. "But I'm afraid you didn't expect Bai Jianxing to come in person. Do you want to come with me? Let's go together." Although the Celestial Fox child was beautiful, he was also an extremely straightforward person. The four of them were all top heaven's pride geniuses. At this moment, both sides met in the depths of the tea garden. "You are Yi Shiwen?" Ting Yaoyang glanced at Yi Shiwen. His eyes were cold and deep. Although he had already seen Yi Shiwen's silhouette, he still felt a little dazed at this time. "Yes, I am. Haven't you been clamoring for 3 years? TSK, you're really powerful. 3 years without stopping. But now I'm out. Are you satisfied?" Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "You seriously injured my brother. How are you going to settle this?" Ting Yaoyang said, "He deserved it. I have never provoked him. If Jun Dingtian is looking for trouble with you, then he should look for trouble with Jun Dingtian. Why is he looking for trouble with me? Did I provoke him?" Yi Shiwen sneered and said. He had never been a good-tempered person. If someone dared to treat him like a soft persimmon, then don't blame him for breaking his teeth. As the saying goes, a snob looks down on people. Just like your brother. You should discipline him well. Otherwise, if he offends someone in the future, can you protect him? What a sharp tongue, Yi Shiwen. I didn't believe it at first, but now I do. You really have a sharp tongue. Ting Yaoyang was so angry that he laughed and said, "Boom." The real elemental energy under his feet instantly burst out, and the ground cracked open. A fire dragon rose up and enveloped his entire body. It was incomparably vigorous, and the red scales on his body were bursting with a dazzling brilliance under the sunlight. What a powerful dragon chi! Although it's clearly fake, it's as slow as a real dragon. Someone couldn't help but sigh. Yi Shiwen, did you come to my tea party today just to make trouble? The Heavenly Fox Master's handsome face revealed a bit of anger, looking incomparably heroic. Yes, so what? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and looked at Master Heavenly Fox. He didn't care in the slightest. Since he was already standing on by Jianxing's side, then there was nothing more to say to Master Heavenly Fox. Furthermore, Bai Jianxing also understood that the Heavenly Fox Prince looked like an elegant gentleman, but in reality, he was a sinister villain. Such a person was not worthy of being friends with him. Good, how dare you! The Heavenly Fox Master was so angry that he started to laugh. He was thoroughly infuriated by Yi Shiwen. No one has ever dared to provoke me like this. The Master of the Heavenly Fox sneered and said, Then let me see what you're capable of, to have the guts to disrupt my Tao discussion tea party. Shua. After saying that, the Heavenly Fox Master took a step forward. He was elegant like a celestial being, and instantly appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. His posture was graceful, but his movements were incomparably swift and fierce. He went straight for Yi Shiwen's throat, intending to kill him in one blow. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt an astonishing danger coming from that slender white palm. This was the power of the Heavenly Fox Master converging into the palm. Not even the slightest bit of it was released. It looked ordinary, but it was more dangerous than the dazzling scene in the sky. Look at the place where his palm touched, the void instantly shattered. Because it was unable to withstand such a shocking force, it could only shatter completely. Everyone's complexion changed one after another. They could feel this astonishing power. They retreated a few steps in succession. But at this moment, that hand had already arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen didn't panic and didn't retreat. He just shot out like lightning and directly bombarded it with a punch. Yi Shiwen was like the celestial fox prince. He had converged all of his strength into his fist. Otherwise, it would have been normal for a city to sink in the blink of an eye. Bang! Rumble! A violent collision sound was heard. The two hands seemed to have collided in an ordinary manner, but it set off a stormy sea. With the point of collision as the center, a huge tornado was formed, and with an astonishing speed, it rolled up the clouds in the sky and spread out. Walla lala! Yi Shiwen's clothes were fluttering in the fierce astral wind, but his complexion didn't change in the slightest, and even his body didn't sway. On the other hand, the Heavenly Fox Master collapsed at the first touch. He frantically flew backwards, and after retreating a few steps, he was barely able to dispel the terrible power of his body. His feet directly shattered the boundless void, and it looked like a large piece of pitch-black screen, which looked very eerie. Yi Shiwen's mouth flashed a disdainful smile, and said, If your real body was here, I would have some interest, but a mere incarnation actually dares to clamor in front of me. I think you are tired of living, Yi Shiwen said, and suddenly stamped his feet. His whole body instantly disappeared, and when he reappeared, he directly tore open the space, and directly attacked the Heavenly Fox Master. Meteor explosion! Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, and directly launched a punch. All the golden fist energy condensed on his fist, and then fiercely exploded together, directly bombarding the Heavenly Fox Master's body. A shocking power distorted the space, and instantly exploded on the Heavenly Fox Master's body. The Heavenly Fox Master couldn't even react, or in other words, Yi Shiwen's speed was so fast that no one could react. Not to mention those experts at the peak of the profound death realm, even the Heavenly Fox Master couldn't react at all, and was directly hit by the attack. Bang! His whole body exploded in the void, and a huge mushroom cloud slowly rose in the void. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Apart from this, there was actually a stretch of silence. because no one had expected that the fight between the two would end with Yi Shiwen's complete victory. Although Yi Shiwen had a record of slaughtering the Heaven Wasteland battle team 3 years ago, how could the Heavenly Fox Master be ordinary? Although this was only a doppelganger, and not his real body here. In terms of strength, they were afraid that compared to the elites of the Heaven Wasteland battle team 3 years ago, they could completely imagine the extent of Yi Shiwen's tyrannical strength. Some people said that even if he didn't make any progress in 3 years, he would still be a top expert, but from the looks of it, could it be that he didn't make any progress in 3 years? Even if someone said that, they wouldn't believe it. This was no progress? It was likely that in these 3 years, Yi Shiwen's strength had improved to a shocking level. This caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. So strong with such combat strength, I'm afraid that no one in the profound death realm can match him. Many people suddenly widened their eyes. 3 years ago, Yi Shiwen was only able to fight against 3 experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace by himself with the help of the 5 emperors, and also fused with the martial arts embodiment. Now, almost without any other enhancements, his combat strength was already much more tyrannical than his peak 3 years ago. One could imagine how tyrannical he was now. Even Ting Yaoyang couldn't rescue him in time, or rather, he also didn't expect that in front of Yi Shiwen, the Heavenly Fox Master would be so vulnerable. His face began to turn solemn. Yi Shiwen acted as if nothing had happened, and slowly withdrew his power. He turned to Bai Jianxing and said with a smile, "How is it, Brother Bai, I helped you vent your anger? Ha ha ha, it's worth it." Bai Jianxing laughed loudly. The shock he felt just now was no less than the others. Although he had seen Yi Shiwen's earth-shattering strength a few years ago, he also knew that even the doppelganger of the Heavenly Fox Master would not be able to do anything to Yi Shiwen, and might even be suppressed by him. But even so, he didn't expect the battle to be so easy. It was completely a one-sided massacre. But what kind of person was he? Although he didn't expect it, he quickly recovered from the shock and felt extremely carefree. Although he didn't personally take action, he was still exceptionally happy to see his old rival suffer such a big loss. A doppelganger at the peak of profound death realm was not something that could be casually lost. It would be painful to lose it. In the void, the celestial fox child's primordial spirit, which had been blown to pieces, slowly condensed again. That handsome face of his was incomparably unsightly. He was actually blown to pieces by Yi Shiwen in one move, and he did not even have the time to react. This was simply a great humiliation. Even if it was just a doppelganger, it was still destroyed by Yi Shiwen. There was no excuse. He condensed again, but compared to before, his aura was completely weaker. Originally, he was in existence at the peak of profound death realm, but now he couldn't even maintain the profound death realm. If he was attacked by Yi Shiwen again, he would probably dissipate on the spot. Yi Shiwen? He gritted his teeth and said. His eyes were filled with incomparable resentment. He had never suffered such a big loss before. Moreover, he was beaten up by a person that he had never taken seriously. It was enough for a legend expert to suffer in the hands of a profound death realm expert. Bai Jianxing had experienced it once, and that was enough. He absolutely wouldn't allow the same thing to happen again, even if it was just a doppelganger. Like an injured beast, he growled in a low voice. "Get lost, I'm not here to look for you today. We'll talk when your main body is here. A mere doppelganger dares to be arrogant in front of me? You must be tired of living." Chapter 2029. A mere doppelganger was indeed nothing in Yi Shiwen's eyes. To him, this was not even a conversation of the same level. The Celestial Fox Master looked at Yi Shiwen with an ugly expression but did not say anything to refute. A mere doppelganger. Originally, he did not think much of a mere doppelganger. Even if it was just his doppelganger, it was enough to look down on all the peak profound death realm experts. He had spent a lot of effort to form this doppelganger. For a pure doppelganger like this, the strength it could produce depended on the individual's needs. That was why Bai Jianxing said that even the celestial fox master would be distressed by the loss of this doppelganger. Brother, your real body is not here. It will still be a little difficult to deal with this kid. Leave the rest to me. Ting Yaoyang stepped forward and said. He only looked at Yi Shiwen with a sharp gaze that seemed to be constantly flashing with lightning. The celestial fox master nodded with an ugly expression and did not continue to say anything. In this state, the doppelganger was indeed no match for Yi Shiwen. This is not a suitable place to fight. Do you dare to fight with me in the starry sky? Ting Yaoyang said as he took a step forward. His figure turned into a ball of dazzling sun and disappeared into the sky. Why not? Yi Shiwen smiled slightly. He immediately took a step forward and chased in Ting Yaoyang's direction. Everyone was stunned for a moment and hurriedly followed into the starry sky. Everyone was very clear that this time, both sides were going to fight for real. It was not like the short exchange between the celestial fox master and Yi Shiwen. Both sides had controlled the scope of the battle within their control because it did not matter. However, if they were to fight for real, they might not be able to control themselves. The aftermath of a casual attack could destroy the sky-splitting city. If that happened, even the big shots of the nameless Dao College would be alarmed. Yi Shiwen had just hurried into the starry sky when he suddenly saw a huge hand suddenly turn into a ball of flames and directly slap towards him. Ting Yaoyang did not hold back. He immediately took the initiative and seized the initiative. In the face of the sudden attack, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. He directly pinched a seal, inverted ocean seal. In the sky, boundless waves condensed into a monstrous wave, destroying the flame of the big hand. Compared to the Han seal, the ocean-inverting seal was a notch higher, overturning rivers and seas, boundless enough to wipe out all kinds of monsters. Boom! At this moment, a gigantic palm and a gigantic seal collided in the void, causing an endless amount of energy to surge out, penetrating through the boundless void and spreading outwards. The black void began to collapse on a large scale. Yi Shiwen's figure was like a peerless overlord amidst this boundless energy tide. He directly rushed out and ignored these energy tide. He took a step forward, and his long black hair fluttered in the wind. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and ferociously bombarded it. The golden divinities crazily distorted, and transformed into fist energy. The power of this punch was amazing, as if to open up a whole new world. It mercilessly bombarded Ting Yaoyang. In an instant, the offensive and defensive situation became easy. In the face of Yi Shiwen's boundless offensive, Ting Yaoyang was slightly surprised. He seemed to be a little surprised that Yi Shiwen could easily break his attack and launch an attack first. However, there was no change on his face. He directly grabbed out a big hand and the flame covered it. Faintly, it seemed to have turned into a skinny claw, directly burning and destroying everything. Walala! His surroundings instantly turned into a sea of fire. In this sea of fire, countless ferocious flame beasts were constantly roaring in it, constantly venting their anger. This was a world of flames. Yi Shiwen was directly placed in this sea of fire. He immediately felt a kind of monstrous pressure in this flame domain. Moreover, there was a kind of law that was trying to integrate into his bone marrow, melting his whole body. His whole body seemed to be on the verge of breaking apart. In his hands, the law of fire had almost reached the acme of perfection. Compared to him, the people he had met before could not be mentioned in the same breath. Rumble! At this moment, fireballs smashed down from the sky one after another. The flames within these fireballs were all strange flames, and contained boundless fluctuations of the power of laws. It was a frightening power that could destroy an entire city in an instant. It was like millions of meteors that directly smashed down. At this moment, everyone had just flown into the void when they saw such an earth-shattering scene. They were almost scared to death. How terrifying! This Ting Yaoyang is too powerful. If I am not careful, I will be seriously injured by any of these meteors. I might even die. Is this really the power that a peak profound death stage expert can possess? No wonder Ting Yaoyang was still so confident even after knowing that Yi Shiwen had killed 3 experts of the Heaven Wasteland battle squad. He does indeed have the capital to back it up. This Yi Shiwen is also not easy to deal with. I don't know how much stronger he is compared to 3 years ago. It seems that this will be a fierce battle between giants. Sure enough, as everyone had expected, Yi Shiwen did not panic at all. He directly blasted a fist that filled the sky with fist energy and light, and directly collided with the fireballs. Rumble! Suddenly, a series of violent and frightening rumbles began to explode in the entire starry sky. The dazzling light caused by the collision directly caused the entire void to become incomparably dazzling. At this moment, Ting Yaoyang was like a flame monarch, controlling everything that belonged to the flames. He was peerlessly overbearing. Yi Shiwen, I will make you regret it. Ting Yaoyang's cold voice directly penetrated the flames that filled the sky and spread out. Then come and give it a try. However, this is still not enough. Yi Shiwen's voice also came out from the void, but no one could see it. At this time, a big golden hand came out of the void and suddenly clawed. Everything in the void exploded, and the flames that filled the sky were almost grasped. At this moment, everyone finally saw the situation of the 2 people. Ting Yaoyang had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen did not panic at all. He directly grabbed with one hand again, penetrated the void, and went straight for Ting Yaoyang's neck. His attack was incomparably ruthless. He directly wanted to end Ting Yaoyang's life. Swish! Yi Shiwen directly penetrated Ting Yaoyang's body. Ting Yaoyang's body turned into a ball of flames. This ball of flames followed Yi Shiwen's arm and directly burned his body. Yi Shiwen quickly used divinity to completely annihilate these burning flames. When he looked up again, there were many figures in the void. Ting Yaoyang had actually divided into countless flame incarnations, and it was difficult to distinguish the real one from the fake. All the incarnations seemed to be just a ball of flames, but Yi Shiwen knew that there must be his real body among them. His real body was hiding among them, waiting to give him a fatal attack. This time, Yi Shiwen's expression finally became dignified. Above his head, the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram suddenly evolved, protecting him in it. Then, he directly took a big stride and penetrated into Ting Yaoyang's countless flame incarnations. Boom! There was a huge collision sound, forming a frenzy of energy that rushed wildly in all directions. Yi Shiwen was like a humanoid tyrannosaurus, directly rushing in and directly knocking away countless flame incarnations on the spot, forcing them to reveal their original forms. This was a terrifying collision of tit for tat. Both sides did not hold back. I don't care which one is your real body. It doesn't matter if I kill you all. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. He then blasted his fist, and destroyed a large number of fire doppelgangers. His fist energy split into countless fist chis, which were thrown in all directions. These fire clones were directly destroyed by these fist chis. The terrifying battle caused the sky to shake, and there was no sign of it calming down. And just when these flame incarnations were destroyed, Ting Yaoyang's figure finally appeared in the sky. He was stepping on a group of flames and was clad in a fiery red robe. He looked just like the god of fire. His complexion was slightly dignified. He knew that Yi Shiwen was not easy to deal with. It was no wonder that Heavenly Eagle Boy had suffered a big loss in his hands. He was not a match at all, but he seemed to have such strength. Ting Yaoyang's eyes flickered, revealing a bit of surprise, but he soon calmed down. This could not shake his rare determination to kill Yi Shiwen today. Yi Shiwen must die today. He opened his palms and displayed a shocking martial art, a flame martial art. The flames that rose up had the power to seize the fortune of the heavens and earth. It was as if the first flame in the world had appeared. The amazing temperature had completely melted the space barrier. Compared to before, it was many times more powerful. Ting Yaoyang's strength in this state was tyrannical and terrifying. The so-called monstrous existences of the Heaven Wasteland Palace 3 years ago were not on the same level as Ting Yaoyang at this time. Could it be? A terrible guess flashed in his mind. But his hands did not slow down at all. Boom! The power of the 5 elements condensed all of a sudden, directly entering the state of 5 emperors. His expression became even colder, like a real monarch of the world overlooking the world. Endless murderous spirit splashed out, the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram rapidly rotated out, an invisible power around his body, like a meat grinder, crushed all the flames that dared to fly over. The water monarch constantly spewed out cold divine light, destroying a sea of flames. And Yi Shiwen was not to be outdone. A golden refining appeared under his feet, and his body turned into a ball of golden light, flying towards Ting Yaoyang. Chapter 2030. After condensing the state of 5 emperors, Yi Shiwen's combat power had increased by a notch. If he was suppressed by Ting Yaoyang just now, it was different now. He could even launch a counterattack. Ting Yaoyang was not surprised by such a method. In the light shadow, Yi Shiwen also showed such combat power, so there was nothing to be surprised about. However, he was not in a hurry. With only the fire symbol technique, he completely blocked Yi Shiwen's offensive. Yi Shiwen had used the principle of mutual promotion and restraint of the 5 elements to form an endless circle, thereby crushing everything. Then, Ting Yaoyang had displayed the law of fire to the extreme. His tyrannical flames swept across the area and defeated all the strong enemies. Both of them had utilized the power of the 5 elements to the pinnacle. The battle between the two of them continued. From the beginning of the starry sky, they directly fought their way into the depths of the starry sky. Along the way, it was unknown how many stars were shattered by the attacks of the two of them. Even space itself was collapsing on a large scale. Under the state of 5 emperors, Yi Shiwen's combat power increased crazily. It could almost be said that he had faintly touched the door of the myth realm. He was like an overlord, unstoppable, sweeping in all directions. In such a state, Yi Shiwen even made Ting Yaoyang feel a trace of pressure. At this time, he was no longer fighting against Yi Shiwen with his bare hands. In the previous few collisions, his hands were numbed by Yi Shiwen's terrifying strength. He was extremely shocked. He knew his body very well. Yi Shiwen's body could actually be shocked to the point of numbness. Yi Shiwen's body was really terrifying. He directly took out a long saber condensed from a group of flames. On this long saber, there was a golden crow flapping its wings and flying, making bursts of long cries. It flapped its wings, turning the entire starry sky into a world of flames. Swish! An amazing saber light directly slashed over. The blade swept in all directions, and fiercely swept down towards Yi Shiwen. This saber light was tens of thousands of feet long, and it fiercely slashed down. Yi Shiwen was even more amazing. He directly pinched a seal, and formed a mountain ridge that was hundreds of miles long in the void. Then, he grabbed this mountain ridge in his hand and danced it. It crushed the heaven and earth, and directly blasted it down towards the saber light. Boom! It was another shocking collision. The light emitted from the collision was enough to destroy everything. The surrounding experts retreated one after another, not daring to approach. That frightening power caused them to tremble with fear. Even a tiny bit of it was enough to seriously injure a profound death stage expert, causing them to nearly faint from fright. Especially when Yi Shiwen was brandishing that hundreds of miles long mountain ridge. He was simply a monster. Even if they had cultivated to this day, and their strength had already reached extraordinary levels, it was still hard to imagine that they would be so reckless. With such power, he would likely be able to beat a profound death stage expert to death with just his physical body. He was simply a beast in human form. Boom, 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 boom. The battle between both parties became increasingly intense, and had entered a white-hot stage. Both parties had already displayed the maximum combat power that a profound death stage expert could display. Compared to these two, the elites of the Heaven Wasteland Palace were merely elite. There was still a huge gap between them and these two geniuses. They were indeed abnormal, but it depended on who they were compared to. Right now, one was truly more abnormal than the other, and each was more powerful and terrifying than the other. When the two of them collided, it was truly frightening. Ting Yaoyang let out a long roar, and an incomparably huge golden crow appeared under his feet. It instantly flew towards the sky, carrying Ting Yaoyang like the most powerful god in the world. At this moment, Yi Shiwen had directly evolved into an incomparably powerful emperor. The 5 colors on his body were the power of the 5 elements that were constantly flowing and looked incomparably majestic. This was the battle between a god and an emperor. The Golden Crow was the legendary fire god who had mastered the true sunfire, and Yi Shiwen had even transformed into the 5 elements emperor. He was extremely powerful. Yi Shiwen was the first to attack. This time, he did not intend to give Ting Yaoyang any time to prepare. He instantly attacked and suppressed Ting Yaoyang. His power was monstrous, and he was like a god that had descended to the world. As he raised his hand, the laws of the world rotated rapidly, and attacked Ting Yaoyang like a sharp sword. Ting Yaoyang was not to be outdone. He rode on the Golden Crow, and a monstrous sea of fire swept out, burning everything in its path. Hong long long long. The 2 huge Dharma idols collided rapidly in the sky. The true sunfire was extremely powerful, and it directly caused the world to collapse. However, no matter how powerful the true sunfire was, it could not break through Yi Shiwen's defense. The power of the 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other. Although the true sunfire was an unusual type of fire, it was also invisible. In a collision of this level, Yi Shiwen did not fall into a disadvantageous position. On the contrary, he had the upper hand, and directly launched another punch. Bang! This Golden Crow was beaten back again and again. The 2 Dharma idols were competing with each other's terrifying real chi and flesh. In this regard, Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form had an absolute advantage. Bang! His fist directly blasted into the Golden Crow and blasted into Ting Yaoyang's body, almost punching a bloody hole in Ting Yaoyang's chest. The Golden Crow's claw also grabbed Yi Shiwen's chest, leaving a huge bloody wound. The battle between the 2 sides began to bleed, and the people watching on the side were even more frightened. Both sides seemed to be evenly matched, and almost both sides began to suffer heavy injuries. If this continued, they were afraid that they would really be torn apart. Beat! A phoenix's cry came from Yi Shiwen's body, and the huge wound on Yi Shiwen's chest was almost recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although the big hole in Ting Yaoyang's chest was also recovering rapidly, it was obviously a level lower than Yi Shiwen's. In a fight between masters, it was very likely that there was only a slight difference. What's more, this was obviously a level lower. And Yi Shiwen almost at that moment rushed over again. His recovery speed was faster than Ting Yaoyang's. This was his advantage, and if he wanted to transform this advantage, to become bigger and bigger, he must seize every little bit of time. Bang! The 2 sides fought again, and Yi Shiwen was shaken out, and there was another bloody wound on his chest. However, Ting Yaoyang's wound, which had already recovered, was seriously injured again, and the wound was a little bigger. Yi Shiwen didn't wait for him to catch his breath. Yi Shiwen stepped on the void and once again pounced towards him. The principles of the 5 elements that filled the sky were his best weapons. They were mixed in with his fist energy. They could boil everything, and they could also blow everything up. Seeing Yi Shiwen's crazy appearance, Yinro could not help but worry. Big Brother Ye's fighting style is too crazy, it is almost risking his life to fight. Yes, this is too risky, Yi Shan also said worriedly. Almost every time Yi Shiwen left a wound on Ting Yaoyang's body, he would also be injured. This was 1-for-1. No, you don't understand. This is not risking his life to fight. On the contrary, soon, Brother Yi will widen the gap between him and Ting Yaoyang. This Ting Yaoyang is not Brother Ye's opponent, and it is only a matter of time before he is defeated. Bai Jianxing said faintly. He could more or less see the situation of this fight between the two sides. Is Yi Shiwen risking his life to fight? No, this is exactly not risking his life to fight, but using his own powerful recovery ability, and finally wear him down to death. Such a letter of challenge seemed ordinary, but for Yi Shiwen, it was the most effective. Otherwise, if the fight continued like this, both sides would have scruples, and no one knew how long the fight would last, which was definitely not what Yi Shiwen wanted to see. Brother Ye's powerful recovery ability is his biggest reliance. At this time, Ting Yaoyang finally saw what Yi Shiwen's plan was. Yi Shiwen clearly wanted to use his advantage to wear him down to death. Both of them were fighting for time. They wanted to see who could recover faster. Whoever could recover faster would have the absolute initiative. If this went on, then slowly, they wouldn't be able to pose any threat to Yi Shiwen anymore. This was the most frightening thing for them. If he was weakened to a certain extent, then he would even be killed by Yi Shiwen on the spot. However, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. How could this freak's recovery speed be so strong? His holy healing technique was already a first-class healing technique in the world. However, compared to Yi Shiwen, it was still like heaven and earth. The difference was a whole grade. The fight between masters only lasted for a moment, not to mention the difference of a whole level. Because he could not compete with Yi Shiwen in terms of consumption, Ting Yaoyang had to start to dodge in the end. There was no way to attack Yi Shiwen as valiantly as just now. The initiative of the battle slowly shifted to Yi Shiwen's hands. Yi Shiwen slowly gained the upper hand, and on the contrary, Ting Yaoyang began to gradually fall into a disadvantageous position, giving up the initiative. Under Yi Shiwen's offensive, he kept retreating, trying to buy more time for himself to recover. As long as he recovered, then it would be Yi Shiwen's time to die. Ting Yaoyang kept roaring. Yi Shiwen did not need to think much to fully understand his thoughts. How could he let him go? He directly strode forward and increased his offensive. At this level, the laws in the sky obeyed his command and began to condense, attacking Ting Yaoyang. Boom! 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 Ting Yaoyang just kept letting go, but he did not counterattack. Finally, after a long time, he seemed to have completely mastered something and shouted coldly, "Yi Shiwen, you have completely angered me. Only death awaits you." Chapter 2031. Rumble. Around his body, in his blood vessels, an astonishing power swept out in an instant. In his body, there seemed to be a huge roar of a beast, vast and boundless. That little bit of injury had long since been healed. His aura had once again crossed over to another level. Myth realm. Yi Shiwen's eyes narrowed. He was very familiar with this aura. Myth realm. A faint divine pressure swept out from his body. This was the sign of becoming a demigod. This was different from Yi Shiwen's. Yi Shiwen had relied on a special technique to generate divinity, which could be classified as opportunistic. But this was a natural result of stepping into the myth realm. Seeing this scene, everyone quickly reacted. They didn't expect that Ting Yaoyang had already stepped into the myth realm. Everyone came to a sudden realization. No wonder the arrogant celestial fox personally invited Ting Yaoyang. It turns out that he regarded Ting Yaoyang as a friend. No wonder the celestial fox personally came out to greet him. No one else has such an honor. That's right. This is troublesome. Ting Yaoyang has stepped into the myth realm. It doesn't matter what Yi Shiwen does. This is going to be a repeat of the battle between the celestial fox and Bai Jianxing. This is bad. Brother Yi is in big trouble. Bai Jianxing's expression changed drastically. He had fought with young Master Heavenly Fox once, so how could he not know how terrifying a myth realm expert was? In that battle, he had used up thousands of years of his lifespan, and only then did he manage to severely injure young Master Heavenly Fox. Bai Jianxing himself was like a lamp that had run out of oil. Because of this, he understood how terrifying a myth realm expert was. With a wave of their hand, they could make the sky fall and the earth crack. Yi Shiwen, this is the end. You are the first person to force me to this extent and expose my strength. Ting Yaoyang looked at Yi Shiwen and grinned. His expression was cold and emotionless. It was as if he was looking at an ant. No wonder you're so confident. You're a godmyth. Yi Shiwen's expression became dignified. Honestly speaking, this was the first time that he had fought against a legendary figure. He had fought against the Abyss Devil Lord before, but the difference in strength between both sides was too big. They were not on the same level. So, the Abyss Devil Lord could easily crush him to death with just one move. So, he didn't have the opportunity to experience the experience of fighting against a legendary figure. This was not a common experience. You're still being stubborn at a time like this? The divinity on Ting Yaoyang's body was released. It was as if a god had descended to this world. A dazzling nobility and mystery were emitted. Fine, let me finish you off. I'll let you know just how big the gap between us is, Ting Yaoyang said coldly. With a bang, the qi on his body surged like the sea, driving countless laws to lock Yi Shiwen up like chains. Countless laws that obeyed Yi Shiwen's command instantly turned to Ting Yaoyang's subordinate. Obeying his command, they turned into chains of talismans and directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Ting Yaoyang didn't need to move much. As long as he relied on the control of the laws of a legendary figure, it was enough to make Yi Shiwen a mortal enemy. Clang! Yi Shiwen also slapped his palm directly on the chains of law like lightning. It directly made a sound like gold and iron colliding, and sparks flew everywhere. With Yi Shiwen's monstrous strength, he could even smash mountains, but he couldn't stop the advancement of the chains of law. In an instant, they had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. Swish! The talisman of law was like a sharp long arrow that penetrated Yi Shiwen's body, but it didn't pierce into Yi Shiwen's body. In the nick of time, he dodged it. In the next moment, Yi Shiwen appeared in the sky again. Behind him, the tempest wings were constantly flapping, and countless tempest power was boiling. With him as the center, it formed a thunderstorm sea. Trying to escape, Ting Yaoyang didn't even need to use martial arts. He instantly mobilized those martial arts laws and turned them into Taoist sword. They soared into the sky like a storm and fell towards Yi Shiwen. These were not ordinary Taoist swords, but talisman swords transformed from the laws. They shone with all kinds of laws, and their power was different. To be able to distort the laws like this and use them as one pleased, this was in itself the ability of the god. Demigods were contaminated with some of the characteristics of the gods, so they also had some abilities. When the gods built their own divine kingdom, they used such abilities. They could make water flow higher, make the wind stand still, change the nature of the laws, and use the power attached to these laws for their own use. This was the most terrifying thing about the gods, because they not only mobilized the power of heaven and earth for their own use, but they could even modify the power of heaven and earth as they pleased. Mortals couldn't go against the gods, and they could even modify the laws to make you explode on the spot, and blood splattered everywhere. Boom! Yi Shiwen had just dodged, and these Taoist swords of law smashed down fiercely, blasting a huge hole. Yi Shiwen was shocked. In the distance, Ting Yaoyang's figure had gradually become blurred. It was a distorted space. Although he seemed to be still here, he didn't know which space his body was in. This was almost an invincible ability, and he had modified some of the laws of space. This Ting Yaoyang was really terrifying. Yi Shiwen knew from the memory of the ancient ancestor religious master that even among the myth realm masters, not everyone could reach this level. This was possible only if the understanding of the laws of space had reached an extreme level. These swords of law were like wolves that had smelled the scent of blood. They pounced towards Yi Shiwen once again. Yi Shiwen could clearly feel that the surrounding space was undergoing a huge change as these swords of law danced in the air. The omnipresent principles had been distorted and modified by someone. Especially the flame principles. They had been modified to the extent that they wouldn't listen to his commands. It was now very difficult for him to release his fire attribute energy. Being able to release fire attribute energy was allowed by the laws. However, if the laws were changed by someone and it wasn't allowed, then everything would be reversed. There was nothing he could do. Therefore, he could only use the domain of the power of wind and thunder to forcibly expand a range. Within this range, he was barely not affected by the changes of these laws. Damn, if this goes on, I won't be his opponent at all. Yi Shiwen kept dodging, and the wings of wind and thunder behind him kept flapping, but he was also very clear that he couldn't persist like this all the time. His endurance was probably not comparable to Ting Yaoyang's. This was a myth realm master. Even if he only released a little of his power, it was enough to catch him off guard. In terms of understanding the laws, Yi Shiwen didn't lose to Ting Yaoyang, but in terms of power, he was still far behind. However, he didn't panic. Ting Yaoyang had a hidden trump card, so didn't he? Even if there were already exclamations around him, it didn't affect him at all. Let me try to see to what extent you have already mastered the laws. Yi Shiwen sneered, and suddenly a mass of the power of wind and thunder appeared in his hand, instantly turning into a spear of the power of wind and thunder, and then fiercely blasted towards Ting Yaoyang. Swish! This spear instantly broke through the space, avoiding the space that had been modified beyond recognition, and escaped into the void. Swish! When it appeared again, it had already pounced in front of Ting Yaoyang. In the face of Yi Shiwen's lightning attack, Ting Yaoyang didn't move at all. In an instant, the lightning spear pierced through Ting Yaoyang's body, and directly entered the alternate space. Yi Shiwen secretly thought to himself. As expected, his entire body had already been concealed by the laws of space. In other words, he was already in an invincible position. This was too terrifying. It was enough to crush anyone at the peak of the profound death realm, and even a myth realm master wouldn't be a match for him. This Ting Yaoyang was indeed a peerless genius that only appeared once in 10,000 years. He was completely different from ordinary people. Yi Shiwen, you don't have to struggle anymore. In the face of my absolute power, you have no chance at all. Perhaps you are also a peerless figure, but it's a pity that you have to go against me. This is all destined for you, Ting Yaoyang said indifferently. Since victory was already in his hands, he naturally didn't mind saying more and humiliating Yi Shiwen. Destined? I've never believed in anything like fate. Moreover, all of you asked for it. If you want to kill me, you have to consider whether or not you have the ability to do so. Yi Shiwen sneered. Still so stubborn. Die. Ting Yaoyang directly formed a giant hand of laws, and instantly pounced on Yi Shiwen's body. Boom! An incomparably loud rumble was heard. This was a shocking collision. His giant hand slowly closed, and an incomparably huge mushroom cloud slowly rose, annihilating everything. It's over. Everything is over. This was the only sentence that appeared in everyone's mind. Yi Shiwen was going to die. In this battle, Ting Yaoyang will establish supreme prestige. No, what is that? Suddenly, everyone immediately realized that something was wrong. Within the mushroom cloud, a figure slowly appeared. Not only was it not crushed by the terrifying claw force, but it was also becoming more and more powerful. It was Yi Shiwen. However, what really caused everyone's expression to change was that Yi Shiwen's aura was actually also continuously rising. It climbed bit by bit, as if it was going to pierce through the sky. Boom. Chapter 2032. Amidst the terrifying explosion, a figure leapt out from within. Before everyone could clearly see what it was, the figure had already pounced in front of Ting Yaoyang. Boom! 5 fingers clenched into a fist, transforming into a monstrous fist energy that directly blasted into the void in front of Ting Yaoyang. Clang! The space in front of Ting Yaoyang suddenly shattered, revealing Ting Yaoyang's true appearance. Immediately, everyone was stunned. Someone could actually break through space and attack Ting Yaoyang. Everyone reacted. That person should be Yi Shiwen. It must be him. Bang! Ting Yaoyang was directly hit in the face on the spot. His entire body flew backwards like a cannonball. Immediately, bone fragments swirled in the air, and his flesh was badly mutilated. Ting Yaoyang's face was about to collapse from Yi Shiwen's punch. Boom! Ting Yaoyang fiercely smashed into a huge star, smashing it into pieces. Only then did he barely manage to stop. This is the first time you've completely released it. It looks pretty good. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said with a chuckle, as if he had done something insignificant. Everyone was stunned. The entire universe was silent, as if half of them were dumbfounded. Everything had changed too quickly. First, Yi Shiwen had completely crushed Ting Yaoyang. Then, Ting Yaoyang had stepped into the myth realm. Each of these things was more shocking than the last, and each was more unexpected than the last. What was even more unexpected was that Yi Shiwen, who everyone thought was finished, actually launched such a fierce counterattack after Ting Yaoyang stepped into the myth realm. Bai Jianxing and the others were even more excited, especially Bai Jianxing. He was the clearest about how terrifying a myth realm expert was. Seeing that Yi Shiwen, who was only at the profound death realm, could launch such a fierce counterattack, he naturally knew how difficult it was. The aura on Yi Shiwen's body was tyrannical and terrifying. If Yi Shiwen had previously made people feel that he was unparalleled, then the current him made people feel that it was a sin to even look up to him. It was a kind of strength that came from the bones, strength that was frighteningly strong. Even more shocking was the fact that Yang Qi hadn't reached the godmyth level yet. He didn't have the pressure of a godmyth, and yet he had managed to injure a godmyth. It did not seem like Bai Jianxing. Bai Jianxing had used a shocking secret technique to severely injure the heavenly fox young master. However, Yi Shiwen had merely fused with his martial arts incarnation. Yes, he had fused with his martial arts incarnation. Bai Jianxing couldn't be more familiar with that aura. As for him, even if he had fused with his martial arts incarnation, he would not be able to defeat the celestial fox prince. What was the difference? This was the difference. Even though Yi Shiwen was much younger than him, but when it came to strength, even he had to look up to him. He believed that even if he hadn't been delayed for more than 1,000 years, he would at most be on par with him. This person is incredible! At this point, Bai Jianxing was completely convinced by Yi Shiwen. Moreover, he also had a faint feeling that Yi Shiwen must have some tricks that he hadn't used yet. He didn't know why he had such a feeling, but he had such a feeling. This intense feeling was getting more and more intense as his aura gradually increased. How is this possible? Ting Yaoyang's face, which had been beaten beyond recognition, had almost recovered in an instant. However, there was no way to conceal the horror in his eyes. He was a dignified mythical figure, but he was actually beaten like this by Yi Shiwen. Even if he had just entered the first level of Paong realm, but to be honest, an ordinary first level of Paong realm was no match for him. This was his true strength. Who would have thought that he would actually suffer a small loss in the hands of Yi Shiwen? However, his eyes only flickered for a moment, and he immediately calmed down. He had only suffered a small loss, and it was essentially nothing. After all, he was a mythical figure, and he had absolute confidence. If he couldn't beat Yi Shiwen as a mythical figure, then he would have no face to continue living in this world. Yi Shiwen, you have some tricks up your sleeve? Ting Yaoyang said slowly, his expression unusually calm. But this is the end. Before his voice fell, he found that there was a blur in front of him. He didn't know when Yi Shiwen had actually rushed in front of him. This is the end? This is just the beginning. Yi Shiwen shouted, and another punch directly broke through the space, directly hitting Ting Yaoyang's face. Bang! As if an old movie was replayed, Ting Yaoyang's whole body was directly blown away like a cannonball. Boom! A star was directly smashed into pieces, and then it stopped. Ting Yaoyang spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was already a bloody mess, and his eyes were full of disbelief. How could this be? If he was inadvertently attacked by Yi Shiwen just now, then it was excusable. But now, he was clearly prepared, but it was simply too late, and he couldn't react at all. Not only Ting Yaoyang, but the others also had a look of disbelief, as if they were dumbfounded. The first time could be regarded as a sneak attack, and the second time, it was a fair and square slap in Ting Yaoyang's face. So fast. In the eyes of the celestial fox master, there was no original resentment and fierce look. On the contrary, there was only shock. Yi Shiwen's speed was simply astonishing. Even if the degree of his strength was not strong, as long as he flew at this speed, who could resist? Ting Yaoyang was at a disadvantage, and the disadvantage was that he couldn't react in time. Even if you had 1,000 magical powers, or 10,000 martial arts, it was useless, because you didn't even have the time to use them. He finally understood what Yi Shiwen had been hiding all this time. It wasn't his terrifying strength, but his amazing speed. When he fought with Yi Shiwen before, he only felt that Yi Shiwen's speed was already very fast, but it was only a slight feeling, because at that time, no matter how fast Yi Shiwen's speed was, it could not be compared to now. It was simply like heaven and earth. He deliberately concealed his strength. What shocked him even more was that Yi Shiwen had not yet entered the myth realm, but by relying on the integration of martial arts incarnation, his combat strength soared to the myth realm, which was the most terrifying. There was a huge barrier between the profound death realm and the myth realm. It was like a natural chasm. Yi Shiwen had already touched this barrier before he had fused with his martial arts incarnation. It was only a fine line away from the myth realm. But even so, when faced with a myth realm figure, he still had no power to fight back. It was just a barrier, but it was also a heavenly river, and no one could cross it. Even when he was in the profound death realm, there was no way to cross this barrier, but Yi Shiwen actually crossed it. Was this not enough to explain what was going on? It was hard to imagine how terrifying this person was, and in the future, he would definitely be a peerless enemy on the road to becoming a myth realm expert. Thinking of this, endless killing intent rose in his heart. He must do everything possible to strangle Yi Shiwen in the cradle. He was already so powerful now. Once he grew up in the future, it would be terrible. How was it? How did this punch feel? Yi Shiwen smiled faintly, as if there was a hint of ridicule in his expression. Ting Yaoyang was completely stunned by this punch, and could not help but roar, "I'm going to kill you!" Around him, countless laws instantly flew up, directly blasting towards Yi Shiwen. When a myth realm expert was angry, millions of floating corpses would appear. Boom! 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 The place where Yi Shiwen had been standing a moment ago had been completely bombed to pieces. Not good. Ting Yaoyang suddenly realized something, and quickly rose a ball of flames, wrapping himself in it. But it was too late. Yi Shiwen's figure directly flashed out. Boom! He was once again blown away by Yi Shiwen's punch, and his body was blown away like a cannonball, flying far away. His face had already been blown out of shape. Ting Yaoyang was so angry that his whole body was trembling. This was the third time. He was beaten beyond recognition by Yi Shiwen using the same move 3 times in a row. It was a great humiliation, it was simply a great humiliation. Ting Yaoyang kept roaring. Since his debut, he had been very strong, and had never suffered such a big loss, not to mention that he was beaten to this state with the same 3 simple moves. If he was defeated by some powerful move, like the Heavenly Fox Master, then there was nothing to say. Bai Jianxing also paid an unimaginable price to severely injure the Heavenly Fox Master. But Yi Shiwen was so relaxed, and he had only fused with the martial arts incarnation, it did not seem like he had used some unstoppable move. This made him shocked and angry. Yi Shiwen, who was only at the peak of the profound death realm, was actually able to force him to this extent. He was simply crazy. Ting Yaoyang was originally full of confidence, and he did not even take the Heavenly Fox Master seriously. Although the Heavenly Fox Master was powerful and had stepped into the myth realm, but so what? He had also stepped into the myth realm, and it was almost a matter of time. There was no such thing as who was more powerful than the other. Ting Yaoyang did not know where the Heavenly Fox Master got the news that he had also stepped into the myth realm, so he invited him to drink tea and discuss Tao, and to exchange their experiences. Sometimes debating Tao was the fastest way to improve. He also had the same idea, so he came happily, but he did not expect to meet Yi Shiwen. Who would have thought that he would suffer such a big loss when he was full of confidence in his ability? Yi Shiwen, I want you dead! Ting Yaoyang roared like an injured beast. He was truly provoked by Yi Shiwen. The aura on his body continued to rise, and a huge ball of flame surged behind him. It was his martial arts incarnation, and he was about to fuse his martial arts incarnation into his body. Bang! With another punch, Ting Yaoyang was sent flying again. The myth realm is only SOSO. Chapter 2033. A gust of wind blew past, and everyone felt a chill run down their spine. It was as if they had been scared stiff by Yi Shiwen. Only one word appeared in their minds: fierce. Yes, fierce was the only word that could describe Yi Shiwen's current state. A frenzied aura surged out from every acupoint in his body, setting off stormy waves. Around his body, there was a terrifying aura supporting him. Everyone knew that this state was martial arts incarnation. Even some of the people present had martial arts incarnations. However, they had never heard of anyone being able to unleash martial arts incarnation to such a terrifying level. Since ancient times, it had not been heard of many times that a profound death realm cultivator could beat a mythical figure to such a state. Over the years, Yi Shiwen was the only person that they had personally witnessed in their lives. The reason why mythical figures were mythical figures was because their strength was unparalleled. Furthermore, they were the most terrifying people in the world. They were already demigods. How could a human be compared to a god? Even a demigod was already a god. However, he had actually been defeated by Yi Shiwen. Moreover, it was not a difficult defeat. If it was someone like Bai Jianxing, it would still be acceptable. However, it was Yi Shiwen who had done it. It was a little scary. No, it was not just a little scary. 4 punches. These 4 punches were ordinary. There was nothing fancy about them. However, it was these 4 punches that had beaten a mythical figure to the point that he could not even stand up. Mythical figures were nothing more than this. Apart from Yi Shiwen, who would dare to say such words? Who would dare to do such a thing? Being able to defeat a mythical figure like this, Yi Shiwen himself had already become a legend. Boom! 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 In the distance, Ting Yaoyang did not know how many stars he had smashed. Although Yi Shiwen's strength did not seem strong, it could be seen from these places. Ting Yaoyang's entire body was sent flying. His body was like a sharp blade, tearing a huge crack in the space. Ting Yaoyang, I think you must not have checked the almanac when you went out today. Yi Shiwen smiled. His smile was so carefree, but in the eyes of the observant people, it was the most terrifying smile. I really don't know what the people in your family are thinking. Your brother looked down on me and treated me like a soft persimmon. He wanted to kill the chicken to warn the monkeys, but in the end, he was killed by me. You are good, rushing to follow in your brother's footstep. Gee, there must be something wrong with your family's genes, Yi Shiwen said with a pitiful expression. Pooh. Ting Yaoyang couldn't help but spurt out a mouthful of blood when he heard this. He was so angry that not only could he not beat Yi Shiwen, but he was also ridiculed by Yi Shiwen. This was not the script he had planned. This was definitely not the script he had planned. If you want to treat me as a soft persimmon, then you should look in the mirror and see how much weight you have. Everyone could see the disdain on Yi Shiwen's face. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Yi Shiwen was the first and only person who dared to look down on the legend realm with his profound death realm cultivation. Ah, Yi Shiwen, I will definitely kill you. Ting Yaoyang only felt anger attacking his heart, and he had completely lost his sense of propriety. His angry eyes spewed out flames that were dozens of feet long. He was completely enraged. Kill me? Who do you think you are? Yi Shiwen had just finished speaking, and his figure had already appeared in front of Ting Yaoyang. Bang! Ting Yaoyang was once again sent flying. It was still the same technique, and it was still the same move. However, he couldn't block it at all. He could only watch helplessly as he was hit by Yi Shiwen's fist. This was the greatest tragedy. He knew how Yi Shiwen was going to attack, and even the angle was the same. But so what? He couldn't react at all. He could only watch helplessly as he was directly hit. So what if you have become a legend? So what if you have become a legend? I can still hit you whenever I want, and I can hit your face, but I can't hit your hand, Yi Shiwen said faintly. He had completely vented his anger. He only felt that everything in front of him was clear. In the past, he had treated these people as his opponent. However, he didn't see them that way anymore. His real opponents were the leaders of the Divine Union and big shots like the Abyssal Demon Master. These people were nothing to him. He only felt that his cultivation realm seemed to be soaring at an astonishing speed. No, it was like a pool that had suddenly expanded several times. Although the water in the pool hadn't been filled up yet, anyone could see that it was already completely different. His eyes swept across the universe and landed on all the heroes who were watching the commotion. This was also a warning to them. Whoever dared to have any ideas about Yi Shiwen would have to think twice. Didn't you see? Even a legend would be beaten up if I said so. Ting Yaoyang, who had gone completely crazy, immediately pounced towards Yi Shiwen. His speed was extremely fast, as if he was a completely injured beast. He was like a meteor. Humph! Yi Shiwen formed a hand seal and drew a mountain ridge that was hundreds of miles long. He grabbed it in his hand and slammed it down like a long whip. Bam! Ting Yaoyang was hit once again. His entire body instantly fell down and fell directly into the mysterious realm. Rumble! He smashed directly into the ground of the Xian world, creating a huge crater that was hundreds of kilometers long. Ah! Ting Yaoyang seemed to have gone crazy as he roared continuously. Within his body, balls of black gas were faintly emitted. Not good, Ting Yaoyang is going to be crippled. The celestial fox young master could see that Ting Yaoyang had already lost his sense of propriety and was in a complete mess. If he could calm down, perhaps there would be a turning point. The profound death realm was still far from the legend realm. How long could Yi Shiwen maintain this state? There would always be a chance of victory if he fought steadily. Unfortunately, he had already lost his sense of propriety. What was even more frightening was the black gas that was surging from Ting Yaoyang's body. It looked like he was about to be controlled by his inner demons. Ah! Ting Yaoyang let out a huge roar. He had been beaten up by Yi Shiwen several times using simple method. He was simply going crazy. Unlike the celestial fox young master, who was only here with his doppelganger, he was defeated. His real body was here, but he was beaten half to death by Yi Shiwen. This had simply impacted his worldview and destroyed his Tao realm. The values that he had established and everything about the world collapsed in an instant. The inner demons that had been hidden in the bottom of his heart for a long time all surged in an instant and counterattacked. Originally, the probability of an expert of his cultivation being plotted against by an inner demon was too small. This was because such an expert was a person with a firm mind. How could they be plotted against by an inner demon? But he was different. After being continuously provoked by Yi Shiwen, he suddenly lost his sense of propriety. This gave the inner demon an opportunity to take advantage of him. Boom! Ting Yaoyang's body finally exploded into pieces with an incomparably loud roar. He had self-destructed on the spot. After the invasion of the inner demon, the most tragic scene occurred. Everyone was dumbfounded. This was even more unacceptable than Ting Yaoyang being killed by Yi Shiwen. Everyone could imagine that Ting Yaoyang, a top genius with a firm mind, was forced to this point. One could imagine how much the incident just now had given him. If it was them, they might not be able to accept such a blow. Ting Yaoyang had never been weaker than others in his life, but he was beaten up in such a way in the end. It was simply a great shame. Even Yi Shiwen was slightly shocked. He did not expect that Ting Yaoyang would end up like this in the end. It was simply completely unexpected. Any expert who had cultivated to this level was paranoid. They would not look back once they had decided on something, so he did not expect Ting Yaoyang to end up like this. Yi Shiwen. After a huge roar, a huge hand fell from the sky and directly grabbed towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen reacted immediately. Above his head, the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram directly appeared and blocked in front of him. Clang! An incomparably loud sound was heard, and the big hand was sent flying. Yi Shiwen also retreated a few steps, and barely managed to stabilize his figure. In the void, an old man with a tiger head and a human body appeared in an instant. His face was ferocious, and he looked at Yi Shiwen as if he had killed his family. Tiger-headed venerable, what are you trying to do? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said coldly. Yi Shiwen, how dare you slaughter a disciple of the Tao Institute behind its back? I think you are really tired of living. You should die according to the law, said the tiger-headed venerable coldly. He gritted his teeth and wished he could tear Yi Shiwen into pieces. Old bastard, you saw it clearly. Which eye of yours saw me kill Ting Yaoyang? His inner demon flared up, and then he self-destructed. What does it have to do with me? Yi Shiwen shouted, you attacked me again and again. Do you really think I have no background? I don't believe that there is no law in the Tao Institute. If it weren't for you, how could his inner demon have flared up? How could he have died? All of this was caused by you, so you should die. The tiger-headed venerable roared in grief and indignation. Ting Yaoyang was not only someone he thought highly of, but also a disciple whom he had accepted as his successor. Ting Yaoyang had died in the hands of Yi Shiwen. His anger was simply burning through the sky. Roar! With a deafening roar, the tiger-headed venerable let out a huge roar. The sun, moon, and stars were instantly shattered. The terrifying energy directly turned into an astonishing sharp blade and slashed towards Yi Shiwen. All the laws seemed to have betrayed Yi Shiwen at once, and directly blasted towards Yi Shiwen. At this critical moment, a gigantic hand grabbed down from the void and destroyed everything. Chapter 2034. Walala! As far as everyone's eyes could see, all the mighty attacks were forcefully wiped out by this giant hand. A figure appeared in the void, and it was none other than the ancient ancestor sect master. At the critical moment, the ancient ancestor sect master made a move and protected Yi Shiwen. Although his strength wasn't inferior to a myth realm expert, there was still a huge gap between him and a veteran myth realm expert like the tiger-headed venerable. At this point, Yi Shiwen couldn't care less about exposing the ancient ancestor sect master, because he had no other choice. "Ancient ancestor sect master, it's you?" the tiger-headed venerable said through gritted teeth. His eyes were ice-cold, and they flickered with a terrifying chill that made people shudder. A disciple that he valued the most, a disciple that could bring his lineage to greater heights, had died. He was simply going crazy. Although Ting Yaoyang wasn't killed by Yi Shiwen definitely couldn't escape the responsibility. As the tiger-headed venerable said, he wouldn't have been taken advantage of by the heart demon if Yi Shiwen hadn't been there. At this time, he couldn't care less about the internal rules and agreements of the Tao College. He just wanted to kill Yi Shiwen to vent his anger. "You want to help this little bee **starred? Then don't blame me. Now that the ancient ancestor sect has been destroyed, you actually dare to appear instead of hiding and enjoying your retirement. I think you're really tired of living. Aren't you afraid that the Heaven Wasteland Hall will come knocking on your door?" the tiger-headed venerable said coldly. He wanted to scare the ancient ancestor sect master away. Ancient ancestor sect master. No wonder. I was wondering why the ancient ancestor sect master would appear. Bai Jianxing and the others suddenly realized why the ancient ancestor sect master would suddenly appear at that time. Indeed, there was an inexplicable relationship between him and Yi Shiwen. It turned out that Yi Shiwen always had such a powerful backer. No wonder he wasn't afraid of anything. He was simply a lawless person. Although the ancient ancestor sect master wasn't as strong as the divine union leader, the abyssal demon master, and the others, it was more than enough to protect one person. The ancient ancestor religious master actually became Yi Shiwen's Tao protector. No wonder I couldn't find the ancient ancestor religious master. It turns out that he was hiding near the nameless Tao Academy. No wonder no one could find him. Someone exclaimed. He did not expect that the ancient ancestor sect master was not hiding nearby, but was hiding in the Tianyuan mirror. He was in the nameless Tao Academy, so it was useless for the Heaven Wasteland Palace to search for him. No wonder Yi Shiwen is so arrogant and despotic. He doesn't care about anything. It turns out that he has such a powerful guardian behind him. It's going to be lively. I originally thought that among these people, Yi Shiwen was the one with the least background. I didn't expect him to have such a powerful guardian behind him. I don't know why the ancient ancestor church master must protect Yi Shiwen. Could it be that Yi Shiwen is actually from the ancient ancestor church? Countless thoughts and speculations flashed through everyone's minds. They had thought through all the speculations, and many of them were even more outrageous. No matter what, after today's incident, everyone understood that Yi Shiwen could not be provoked. It was not only because of his tyrannical strength, but more importantly, because he had an even more powerful guardian behind him. The ancient ancestor religious master's strength could not be considered to be at the peak. He could not be compared to the divine union leader or the Heaven Wasteland Palace master, but he was still very powerful compared to the majority of mythical figures. Coupled with Yi Shiwen's combat strength that was comparable to that of mythical figures, such a combination had already surpassed the first-rate forces even though they had not established any forces. It was not something that ordinary people dared to provoke. Of course, there were advantages and disadvantages. Ordinary people would not dare to deal with Yi Shiwen, but the Heaven Wasteland Palace would probably attack Yi Shiwen crazily and completely slaughter him. Originally, both of them were targets that the Heaven Wasteland Palace had to kill. Now that the two of them had joined forces, how could the Heaven Wasteland Palace not go crazy? Moreover, two mythical realm experts were wandering outside and could launch a fatal blow at any time. In the face of the tiger-headed venerable's angry rebuke, The ancient ancestor religious master did not say a word, as if he could not be bothered to answer. No one knew that the ancient ancestor religious master was actually controlled by Yi Shiwen. At this time, it was naturally impossible for him to be scared off by a few words from the tiger-headed venerable. His eyes slowly sharpened. Originally, he did not intend to expose the matter of the ancient ancestor religious master. Basically, he wanted to hide it for as long as he could. Now that he had no other choice, he was forced to come out. But since he was already forced to come out, he couldn't just sit around and do nothing. The tiger-headed venerable had wanted to attack him time and time again. There was basically no room for reconciliation between the two sides. "Old man, you forced me to do this." Yi Shiwen's eyes bloomed with a terrifying murderous aura. The ancient ancestor religious master responded and moved. Walla lala. In the blink of an eye, all the laws in the world surged under his control. Like waves, they attacked the tiger-headed venerable one. The tiger-headed venerable saw that the ancient ancestor religious master did not care about his consciousness at all, and he could not help but roar. "Ancient ancestor religious master, you dare to offend our lineage. You should be very clear about how powerful our lineage is. Is it worth it for such a kid?" The tiger-headed venerable roared loudly, obviously wanting to threaten the ancient ancestor religious master. If the ancient ancestor religious master was still alive, such a threat might be useful. However, what he did not know was that the ancient ancestor religious master was now just a demonic puppet controlled by Yi Shiwen. He did not care what kind of background they had. The offensive did not stop at all, and it constantly attacked the tiger-headed venerable. Under such an offensive, the tiger-headed venerable could only keep retreating and roaring. He couldn't understand why the ancient ancestor church master was so crazy. Why did he want to protect Yi Shiwen? Why did he desperately attack him? It was as if he didn't care about his life. "Ancient ancestor religious master, you are crazy!" he roared, but it was too late to defend. The ancient ancestor religious master had already appeared in front of him. He directly grabbed a handful of laws, condensed it into a sword in his hand, and directly slashed down. Boom! 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 All the defenses on the tiger-headed venerable collapsed in an instant, and all the defensive magic weapons were smashed in an instant. Then, this sword slashed on the tiger-headed venerable's body. Puff! The sword immediately tore a huge wound on his body. Blood splattered out, and flesh and blood flew everywhere. The tiger-headed venerable retreated again and again, looking at the ancient ancestor religious master with an ugly expression. He and the ancient ancestor religious master had similar realms. They were both at the 5th level of Paong realm. Logically speaking, there should not be such a big gap. However, the ancient ancestor religious master was like a madman now. He calmly attacked all the tiger-headed venerable's weaknesses, as if he would rather expose his weaknesses. As long as he could kill the tiger-headed venerable, he would not hesitate. This was the appearance of exchanging a life for a life. He was simply crazy. But since the ancient ancestor sect master was crazy, he couldn't be crazy along with him. This caused his hands and feet to be tied, and he didn't dare to fight the ancient ancestor sect master freely. This was the most critical part. However, he did not know that Yi Shiwen already had the intention to kill. His performance made Yi Shiwen want to get rid of him as soon as possible. At this time, he naturally could not care about the injuries of the ancient ancestor religious master. Moreover, the ancient ancestor religious master had been refined into a demonic puppet. His physical body had been sacrificially refined, and it was a level higher than before. How could he be injured so easily? The ancient ancestor religious master's attack was not over yet. He directly came over while stepping on the fluctuations of the nomological laws. He was like a peerless deity, expressionless, cold, and indifferent. "Damn it, this is a madman!" The tiger-headed venerable quickly turned his head and wanted to escape. He lost his beloved disciple and was about to go crazy. This ancient ancestor religious master was clearly crazy. God knew why he was so protective of Yi Shiwen and even went to such an extent. Even his disciple would not go to such an extent for him. Although he could not figure out the reason, he knew that he would only be at a disadvantage if he continued to fight recklessly. Thinking of this, he did not dare to stay for long. A stubborn person was afraid of a reckless person, and a reckless person was afraid of a reckless person. This was the current situation. "You want to leave?" The ancient ancestor religious master finally spoke. The moment he opened his mouth, it was an extremely cold sentence. His big hand suddenly grabbed towards the void, grabbed a nomological longsword, and directly stabbed at the tiger-headed venerable. The tiger-headed venerable tried to resist again and again. He wanted to resist, but how could he resist the attack of the ancient ancestor religious master who did not care about his own life at all? Boom! The Tao sword directly stabbed into the tiger-headed venerable's chest and nailed into his heart, causing a violent explosion. In the tiger-headed venerable's dying struggle, he directly grabbed the ancient ancestor religious master's chest and stabbed it into his heart. If the ancient ancestor religious master was still alive, he would probably be seriously injured and die. Unfortunately, he was just a demonic puppet now. Although such an injury was serious, it was not fatal. An astonishing cold light burst out from the ancient ancestor religious master's eyes. A sword aura directly surged into the tiger-headed venerable's chest, minced his heart, and wiped out his last vitality. Until now, the tiger-headed venerable finally reacted. This ancient ancestor religious master was probably controlled by someone or even refined by someone. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to be fine like this. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something. He wanted to say the secret of the ancient ancestor religious master, but in the end, he could not say anything. It was too late for him to react. Finally, his vitality was cut off and he died. Everyone was horrified, and there was only one sentence in their mind. This matter has become big. Chapter 2035. First, Ting Yaoyang, who had a bright future and was expected to prove his Tao in the future, was invaded by his inner demons and self-destructed. Then, an expert like the tiger-head venerable was killed by the ancient ancestor sect master. After killing the tiger-head venerable, the ancient ancestor sect master took the tiger-head venerable's corpse and left. He didn't say a word from the beginning to the end and disappeared completely. When all these things were summed up, there was only one sentence, and that was, "This matter was huge." There was naturally a reason why the nameless Tao College could stand tall in the Xian world for countless years. Most forces with some inheritance in the Xian world basically knew that the nameless Tao College was very, very deep. No one knew how many experts were hidden in it. Some people even vaguely knew that the nameless Tao College wasn't a monolithic block, and seemed to be divided into different factions. As for the origins, not everyone knew. However, everyone knew that Yi Shiwen and the tiger-head venerable were not on the same side. Previously, the tiger-head venerable had come out to stop them once. If not for Ying Tianjing, Yi Shiwen would have been chased all over the sky by the tiger-head venerable on the spot. It was imaginable that there was a deep grudge between the two parties. Now that Yi Shiwen had killed the tiger-head venerable, it was imaginable that this was definitely an earth-shattering matter. The tiger-head venerable's lineage would definitely not let this matter rest. Many people were dumbfounded. From the moment Yi Shiwen came to the Tao discussion, everything had already exceeded the limits of everyone's imagination. This matter had completely exceeded the script that everyone had set for this matter and the scope of everyone's control. Everyone finally saw Yi Shiwen's strength. Was such a strong person really going to be chased out of the nameless Tao College? Thinking of this, Many scouts of the heaven-desolate palace and the divine union began to secretly rejoice. They didn't care how Yi Shiwen had become so strong. To them, as long as Yi Shiwen didn't have the protection of the nameless Tao College, there was no suspense in killing him. Even the ancient ancestor sect master couldn't protect Yi Shiwen. No one could withstand the joint pursuit of these two forces. In the face of such a situation, Yi Shiwen unexpectedly didn't escape. Instead, he bade farewell to Bai Jianxing and the others and directly returned to the nameless Tao Academy. He must be crazy. Why isn't he leaving now? He'll be dead once the people from the nameless Tao Academy react. No one has ever killed someone from the nameless Tao Academy without being hunted down. Heavens, once this news spreads out, the entire profound world will be shaken. This is a big deal. This Yi Shiwen is really a lawless person. Everyone was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. This news quickly spread throughout the entire profound world. At first, no one in the profound world believed this at all. Even if Yi Shiwen was forced by Tiger-Headed Venerable, he wouldn't have such courage. As for the fact that the person who did it was the ancient ancestor sect master, this was completely ignored by everyone. Everyone saw the ancient ancestor sect master as Yi Shiwen's guardian, and it didn't matter whether it was the ancient ancestor sect master or Yi Shiwen who did it. This caused a complete uproar. In the past 10 years, the nameless Tao Academy had been the place that received the most attention. Now, such an earth-shattering incident had happened. It wasn't as simple as the death of two mythical experts. No one knew how many hidden secrets were involved. Everyone felt like they had gone crazy. In many people's opinion, without the protection of the nameless Tao Academy, Yi Shiwen would be dead. Many forces that originally had intentions were even more tempted to make a move. At this time, Yi Shiwen, who had shocked the entire profound world, returned to the nameless Tao Academy as if nothing had happened. He calculated the harvest this time. Ting Yaoyang's self-detonation had caused his belongings to wander into the alternate space. However, the tiger-headed Venerable Lord was different. He had found more than 100 million xiandong from the tiger-headed Venerable Lord's body. This had made Yi Shiwen rich and overbearing. Originally, Yi Shiwen had taken advantage of the chaos in the ancient ancestor religion to plunder 100 million xiandong. However, these xian pills were used for the ancient ancestor sect master to devour the heart of the tree ancestor in the past 3 years. Just this alone consumed all of Yi Shiwen's wealth. It wasn't that the wealth of the continent was insufficient, but Yi Shiwen's absorption speed couldn't keep up with the consumption of the heart of the tree ancestor. He could only burn the xian pills. Moreover, Yi Shiwen didn't dare to let the ancient ancestor sect master absorb it freely. If a fifth heaven of Paong realm expert fully absorbed it, it would probably alarm the nameless Tao Academy. If the Heaven Wasteland Palace knew about it, then it would be terrible. Of course, it didn't matter now. Anyway, it had been exposed. Now, he had harvested hundreds of millions of xian pills. For Yi Shiwen, it was tantamount to a huge fortune. Originally, the ancient ancestor religious leader should have more wealth on him. Unfortunately, the ancient ancestor religious leader had left the ancient ancestor continent empty-handed to fight against war immortal Heaven Wasteland. In order to prevent the possibility of failure, the ancient ancestor religious leader had placed his wealth in the depths of the ancient ancestor continent. Who knew that he would be defeated in the end? Even the ancient ancestor continent was breached, and he couldn't escape at all. The wealth that Yi Shiwen coveted had completely fallen into the hands of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. This was the most regrettable thing for Yi Shiwen. With these hundreds of millions of xian pills, Yi Shiwen could do a lot of things. The first was to push the cultivation of the ancient ancestor sect master to the 6th heaven of Paong realm. This was a level that even the ancient ancestor sect master couldn't reach when he was alive. Now that Yi Shiwen wanted to achieve it, the difficulty could be imagined. Fortunately, He had the ancestral tree's heart as a cushion, and the wealth of hundreds of millions of Xian pills could be used to achieve the next step. He knew that as the matter of him joining forces with the ancient ancestor sect master was seen through, the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance would not treat him as an ordinary person. The people who would come to kill him next would most likely be the top figures in the myth realm. Perhaps some old monsters or antiques would be drawn out. Before the next blow came, he must find ways to improve his strength. Now, no matter how much his strength improved, it was impossible to be compared to the ancient ancestor sect master in the short term, let alone the antiques of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance. Although the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance did not have many myth experts on the surface, but these two forces had run amok in the mysterious world for countless years. How could they not have any trump cards? No one knew the origin of the myth expert who attacked with the Heaven Wasteland War Immortal last time. He did not show up, so one could imagine how deep the waters of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance were. It should be known that some long-lived races could even live for hundreds of thousands of years. These people disappeared tens of thousands of years ago, and slowly no one remembered them. However, it did not mean that they had completely fallen. On the contrary, it was very likely that they were hiding somewhere to cultivate in order to break through to the Tao validation realm. This was the most frightening thing. In order to improve his strength in the shortest time possible, he could only let the ancient ancestor sect master completely devour the ancestral tree's heart. The ancestral tree's heart itself was a top expert in the myth realm, and a peerless existence of the Paong realm. Even if it was slightly inferior to the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master and the Divine Alliance Leader, it was not something that ordinary people could compare to. If he could completely devour the ancestral tree's heart, then the cultivation of the ancient ancestor sect master, who had been silent all this time, would soar by a few levels. At that time, Yi Shiwen's safety would naturally be greatly guaranteed. Even if he had to go bankrupt, he would not hesitate. He did not have much time left. Even if the nameless Tao College was still willing to protect him, he only had a mere 7 years. No matter what, he would have to face the storm-like attacks of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance in 7 years. Before that, he had to think of all ways to improve his strength. He had already reached the peak of the profound death realm, so he had to find a way to break through to the myth realm. Once he entered the myth realm, his strength would soar to another level. Although he could temporarily obtain the strength to fight a myth realm expert by relying on his martial path embodiment, he was ultimately not a myth realm expert. Once he entered the myth realm, his strength would once again undergo a tremendous change. Many of the backup plans that he had prepared for a long time would also take effect quickly. In order to enter the myth realm, he had been preparing for a long time. It could even be said that he had started preparing more than 100 years ago, or even earlier. "You brat, you're really good at stirring up trouble." Just as Yi Shiwen was about to continue his seclusion, a mocking voice came from the void. A figure penetrated the layers of defense of the continent and appeared in front of Yi Shiwen with a helpless smile on his face. Who else could it be but Ying Tianjing? "I was also forced into a corner, so I had no choice but to retaliate," Yi Shiwen said faintly, as if he wasn't the one who had forced 2 myth realm experts to their death. "Furthermore, I didn't kill them. Even if Ting Yaoyang died because of his inner demons, you were the one who killed the tiger-headed venerable." Ying Tianjing looked at Yi Shiwen playfully. There was a tinge of admiration in his eyes. This kid was really bold to actually dare to kill the tiger-headed venerable. He was killed by the ancient ancestor sect leader. "It has nothing to do with me," Yi Shiwen said faintly. "You kid?" Ying Tianjing was momentarily speechless. "Ha ha ha ha, how interesting. You must have guessed that we would definitely protect you, so you still dared to come back." He suddenly burst into laughter, and his appreciation for Yi Shiwen became more and more intense. Chapter 2036. I just believe that the nameless Tao College isn't an unreasonable place, Yi Shiwen said nonchalantly, as if he hadn't done anything. Kid, you're really interesting, Ing Tianjing said playfully. You even dared to touch that old fogey, the tiger-headed venerable, but I didn't dare to touch him. Do you know why? Although that old fogey is ordinary, he has taught an impressive disciple. With his disciple backing him up, he can act without scruples. That disciple of his is famous for being filial. Kid, you forced his junior brother to self-destruct and then killed his master. He definitely won't let you off. Yi Shiwen's pupils constricted slightly. Ing Tianjing's words gave him a strong hint that this matter wouldn't end so easily. But don't worry. That fella is attacking the final heavenly barrier and is at a critical juncture of Tao validation. He won't easily cause trouble for you. Ing Tianjing added. However, Yi Shiwen couldn't stay calm anymore. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Had he offended another person who was about to reach Tao validation? First, it was the Abyssal Demon Master, then the Divine Union Leader, and now this unknown and powerful existence. He was only at the peak of the profound death realm, which was only half a step away from Tao validation. There was still a huge gap between him and them, yet he had already offended someone. How could he continue living like this? What's wrong? Are you afraid? I thought there was no one in this world that you were afraid of. Ing Tianjing smiled at Yi Shiwen. I've seen some information about you. TSK, you've been killing your way through. You're really lawless. I didn't expect you to be afraid. Who wouldn't be worried about an existence half a step away from Tao validation? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but smile bitterly. Furthermore, this isn't the first time I've offended someone of this level. Ah, I remember now. It's the Divine Union Leader, right? That kid is indeed an invincible figure. He's so talented that it's hard to find a match in the mysterious world. You've offended him. TSK, that's a huge problem. Ing Tianjing couldn't help but laugh heartily, as if he could see Yi Shiwen's bitter expression. But are you afraid just because of this? His eyes were burning as he stared at Yi Shiwen and asked. No, it's not my intention to offend them, but I've already offended them. So, there's no point in thinking about it. I'll kill anyone who stands in my way. Yi Shiwen's eyes were sharp as he shouted loudly. Good, you have ambition. I admire people like you the most. Ing Tianjing cheered loudly. Brat, consider yourself lucky. You gambled that our lineage would definitely protect you, which is why you dared to stay. I can tell you that you made the right bet this time. You are someone that our lineage regards highly, so no one can casually convict you. You must remember what you said. The ancient ancestor religion master killed the tiger-headed revered one, not you. And Yi Shiwen's expression was indifferent, but he heaved a huge sigh of relief in his heart. The reason why he had turned around and returned to the nameless Tao Academy instead of running away was because he was betting on the fact that the Tianjing faction would not abandon him and would do their best to protect him. This could be seen from the tiger-headed revered one protecting Ting Yaoyang with all his might. There was no reason for the tiger-headed revered one to protect Ting Yaoyang with all his might, while Ing Tianjing would disregard him. However, this might not necessarily be the case. After all, the tiger-headed revered one was an elder of the nameless Tao Academy. The death of such a person could be said to be an earth-shattering event, and no one could take it lightly. Therefore, he wasn't 100% confident. If even Ing Tianjing couldn't protect him, then he could only wander the world and flee. He knew that he had made the right bet this time. Although everyone said that the ancient ancestor religion master was his guardian, Yi Shiwen had never admitted it from the beginning to the end. Moreover, there was no direct evidence to prove that the ancient ancestor religion master was related to Yi Shiwen. In any case, this was the excuse he gave to the outside world. Whether others believed it or not, he believed it anyway. Ing Tianjing wanted a reason to protect him, and he would give him one. However, let me tell you something. Although I can help you resist the pressure from the nameless Tao Academy, I can't do anything about the pressure from the Heaven Wasteland Hall and the Divine Union. You can only rely on yourself to deal with this. After all, many people in the Tao Academy are unhappy that you killed the tiger-headed revered one. If I hadn't withstood the pressure this time, do you think you would still be able to stay here peacefully? Ying Tianjing shot a glance at Yi Shiwen as he spoke. Thank you for your help, Senior, Yi Shiwen said with a bow. Since you are a member of our lineage, I naturally have my reasons for helping you. However, you are still too weak now, so you don't have the right to know so much. Ying Tianjing said faintly, however, you have a benefactor looking after you and can help you resist the pressure from the Divine Union leader. Everything else will depend on you. If you fall halfway, you can only blame your bad luck. You can't blame anyone. I understand. Yi Shiwen nodded immediately. However, although the disciple of the tiger-headed revered one won't make a move directly, I'm afraid that his lineage won't let you off easily once the news spreads. They will kill their way to the Nameless Tao Academy very soon. All I can do is prevent the Nameless Tao Academy from expelling you, but I can't guarantee that they won't kill you. Therefore, you'd better hurry up and leave now. Otherwise, the troublesome matters will just start, Ying Tianjing said with his arms folded. Thank you for your reminder, Senior. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said. He knew from Ying Tianjing's words that this matter would probably be very dangerous. The people from the tiger-headed revered one's lineage wouldn't let him off easily. In fact, it might even be more dangerous than the Heaven Wasteland Hall and the Divine Union. Especially the disciple of the tiger-headed revered one. Although he had never met him, he had already given Yi Shiwen a lot of pressure. Even if he hadn't successfully broken through, he was still a terrifying existence who was half a step into the orthodox path. It would be even worse if he managed to break through. It would only take a few minutes for a deity to destroy Yi Shiwen. Live well. Although this matter is dangerous, it will also be a form of training for you. If you can pass it, you will also be able to grow rapidly. Work hard. This is all we can do, Ying Tianjing said as he patted Yi Shiwen's shoulder. I hope that the next time we meet, you will already be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with me. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already disappeared without a trace. Not even a spatial fluctuation could be seen. His strength was unimaginable. Yi Shiwen squinted. What he needed to do now was to accumulate his strength. The next time he appeared, he would definitely shock the world and make sure that no one could do anything to him. When Yi Mo seized control of the physical body of the Lord of Darkness and the ancient ancestor sect master refined the heart of the tree ancestor, he would have two more powerful reinforcements. When that time came, he would even have the confidence to fight the leader of the Divine Union personally. However, he recalled what Ying Tianjing had just said. Was there someone taking care of him? He had no idea who was taking care of him. However, this wasn't the time to think about this. Since he had already decided to leave, he didn't hesitate anymore. Although he wouldn't be able to enjoy the resources of the entire continent, he would still be able to support himself for a considerable period of time with over 100 million Xian pills. He first went to the continent where Bai Jianxing was. After bidding farewell to Bai Jianxing, he asked him to pass the news of his departure to Hua Menghan. Hua Menghan's real body was listening now. When she came out of seclusion 7 years later, Yi Shiwen might not be around then. After bidding farewell to Bai Jianxing, Yi Shiwen left the nameless Tao College directly. The influence of this matter in the Xian world was still growing. The news of Yi Shiwen and the ancient ancestor sect master killing 2 mythical experts kept spreading. Normally, the death of a mythical expert was a huge matter that attracted the attention of the world, let alone two. The tiger-headed venerable had a powerful background, while Ting Yaoyang was publicly recognized as an incomparably powerful existence that even had hopes of proving his Tao in the future. The death of these two people was like an earthquake in the Xian world. After everyone recovered from the shock, they were waiting for the nameless Tao College's reply to see when they would expel Yi Shiwen, or even personally capture and kill him. Who would have thought that something unexpected would happen? The nameless Tao College's reply was completely beyond the script that everyone had prepared beforehand. The nameless Tao College didn't expel Yi Shiwen, nor did they personally capture him. Instead, they released an announcement to the public that Ting Yaoyang's heart demon had acted up and he died in his own hands. It wasn't Yi Shiwen's fault. As for the death of the tiger-headed venerable, the nameless Tao College issued a bounty. The nameless Tao College would reward anyone who could capture the ancient ancestor sect master. Everyone was a little dumbfounded. No one expected that the nameless Tao College would actually give such a reply. This was completely beyond their imagination. This was completely separating Yi Shiwen from the ancient ancestor sect master. Ting Yaoyang's death was self-inflicted. His heart demon had entered his body, and no one could save him. However, the death of the tiger-headed venerable was done by the ancient ancestor sect master in front of everyone. No one could deny it. However, in the eyes of many people, this was too ridiculous. Indeed, the tiger-headed venerable had died in the hands of the ancient ancestor sect master. However, in the eyes of many people, the ancient ancestor sect master was Yi Shiwen's guardian. How could Yi Shiwen not be responsible at all? What was the difference between capturing the ancient ancestor sect master and letting Yi Shiwen go? At this point, many people who didn't know the truth felt that the nameless Tao College wasn't a monolithic entity. There should be many factions, and the conflicts between the factions were probably not small. It was just like how Ying Tianjing's faction and the tiger-headed venerables faction were obviously at odds. That was why they issued such a strange announcement. However, an even bigger piece of news spread. Yi Shiwen had left the nameless Tao College. Chapter 2037. Just when everyone thought that the nameless Tao College was going to protect Yi Shiwen suddenly left the nameless Tao College. This caused everyone to be even more confused. What was going on? Everyone knew very well that the people of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union were waiting for him to leave the nameless Tao College after 7 years. Then, they would send a large number of experts to kill him. But now, he had left the nameless Tao College ahead of time. After the nameless Tao College issued a disclaimer, he left. What was going on? Soon, everyone realized what was going on. Although the nameless Tao College wouldn't personally deal with Yi Shiwen, it was clear that the two factions had reached a compromise by chasing him out. They would chase Yi Shiwen out, but they would not pursue him in the name of the nameless Tao College. Yi Shiwen would still be a disciple of the nameless Tao College. However, many people also reacted. Although Yi Shiwen still carried the nameless Tao College's name, his deterrent power was already very low. Ying Tianjing's faction had tacitly agreed to Yi Shiwen's departure. This meant that they wouldn't interfere in Yi Shiwen's affairs. This made countless people excited all of a sudden. It wasn't just the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union that had old enmities with him. Even some of the mythical experts of the rogue cultivators showed signs of personally taking action. Everyone was very clear that Yi Shiwen himself represented countless rewards. In addition, the ancient ancestor religion master still had the tree ancestor's heart. No one believed that he could digest the tree ancestor's heart in such a short time. Now, there was still a chance to obtain the tree ancestor's heart. Originally, they couldn't find the ancient ancestor religion master. Now, as long as they followed Yi Shiwen, they could find him. Many people suddenly became restless. In the face of such a situation, the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union directly announced that they wanted the heads of Yi Shiwen and the ancient ancestor religion master. Whoever could kill either of them could be appointed as the palace master of one of the Heaven Wasteland Palace or the Deputy Alliance Master of the Divine Union and receive the full resources of the two forces. This condition could be said to be very generous. Now, even many of the rogue mythical experts were tempted. At their level of cultivation, the demand for resources was extremely high. Without the support of a huge force, it could be said that it would be very difficult for them to move forward. They were not like Yi Shiwen, who dared to kill legendary experts to plunder their wealth. However, they were not willing to join any force and become a hired thug. If they could become the next Hall Master of the Heaven Wasteland Palace or the Deputy Alliance Master of the Divine Alliance, it would be different. Regardless of strength, just their status alone would make them a top figure in the mysterious world. For a moment, experts from all over the world gathered. However, Yi Shiwen's troubles obviously didn't stop. After the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union, the tiger-headed Venerable's lineage even privately announced that anyone who killed Yi Shiwen or the ancient ancestor sect master would receive a gift from them. This made countless people even more excited. This was a force that could enter the nameless Tao Academy. Even with the strength of the Heaven Wasteland Hall and the Divine Union, they could only ask for help from the nameless Tao Academy. However, they could not enter the nameless Tao Academy. For a moment, almost all the experts in the profound world were staring at Yi Shiwen. Everyone was looking for him. At this time, when Yi Shiwen was almost about to become the public enemy of the entire profound world, an even more explosive news came out. However, this matter had nothing to do with Yi Shiwen. Instead, it affected the hearts of everyone in the profound world. Countless experts in the profound world stayed in the profound world for only one purpose, and that was to prove their Tao. Otherwise, why would they need to travel thousands of miles from other worlds to the profound world? Therefore, as long as there was a bit of news about the Tao, even if it was just a little bit, it would attract everyone's attention. And this news was related to the Tao validation. Although everyone had retreated from the demon god's graveyard, which had previously defeated all the experts, they did not give up on the search. After a few years of searching, they actually discovered an even bigger secret, which was that the demon god's graveyard was actually just one of many. This was a graveyard of the Ragnarok of the gods. No one had expected it to be a graveyard of the Ragnarok of the gods. According to the information obtained, the total number of gods who had fallen in the battle was unknown. There were probably more than 100 gods. When this news had just reached the Xian world, it caused an uproar in the entire Xian world and caused an unparalleled sensation. Even if it was just the graveyard of a demon god, it could cause a collective riot, not to mention that there were so many graveyards of gods connected together. Everyone was in an uproar all at once. It should be said that it was completely boiling. Hundreds of gods had fallen, and there might even be more gods buried in it. When this news had just spread, it caused everyone to go completely crazy. Even if the news had not been confirmed, and even the source of the news was not very clear, everyone was prepared. Later, several highly respected mythical figures in the profound world personally confirmed the accuracy of this news. All of a sudden, the profound world was in an uproar. It was unknown how many profound realm experts, celestial realm experts, mythical experts, and many other experts rushed over like crazy. It was as if they had found a great treasure. Even if they could obtain the inheritance of one of the gods, it would be enough for them to become rich overnight, and they might even be able to achieve Tao validation in one go. When this news spread, the leader of the Divine Union, the Palace Master of the Heaven Wasteland Palace, the City Lord of Heavenly Cloud City, and many other mythical Pawang realm experts rushed over, it suddenly caused an even greater uproar. Everyone rushed over, not willing to fall behind others. Under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen's matter was actually quietly let go. With this opportunity to achieve Tao validation and become a god, who would care about Yi Shiwen? This couldn't help but make many people disappointed. Many people even felt that Yi Shiwen's luck was too good. When the entire Xian world was staring at him, such a big thing suddenly broke out, which instantly attracted everyone's attention to the Xian world. Yi Shiwen escaped a disaster. After that, as more people headed towards that area, it was gradually explored by others. This area was actually an extremely ancient area, as if it had not been in contact with the heavens and myriad worlds for a long time. It seemed that due to the war of the deities, various laws were broken, and no experts could be produced. It was just a low-level world. More importantly, even the laws of space here seemed to have been destroyed, and had yet to recover. It did not seem to be connected to other worlds. Even if everyone wanted to go over, they had to set up a teleportation array in advance and pay a huge price to go to that world. The situation of that world was also slowly transmitted over. It was a very large galaxy, and there were many worlds in it. Most of the indigenous people in these worlds were humans, but their strength was not strong. The strongest ones were only in the transcendent realm. Compared to those who went there, even the weakest celestial realm expert among them, there was a huge gap. There was nothing strange about such a low-level world. This was because the war of the deities had broken the laws, and did not allow the existence of experts higher than the transcendent realm. It was equivalent to cutting off all of their future paths. Some even sympathized with these humans. These experts had traveled the heavens and myriad worlds. It was not surprising that they had encountered at least 80 or 100 such small worlds. Although there were many small worlds here, they were not their goal. Their goal was only the twilight of the deities in the depths of this galaxy, the place where many gods were buried. Many people came and went in a hurry, causing a complete uproar and shock among the indigenous people in that place. So many experts who were like gods descended from the heavens had completely stunned the humans here. It was as if these experts had appeared overnight. These people were high and mighty. They seemed to only want to understand some things about the twilight of the deities. Although these indigenous people were not in their eyes, there were many sects with a long inheritance. Some of them had records of the twilight of the deities. Although many of them were hearsay, it was much better than not knowing anything. In the face of these godlike experts, these indigenous people did not dare to resist at all. They hurriedly offered the ancient records of their ancestors. Through the fragmentary records in these ancient books, the Almighties in the Xian world finally understood that this was a battlefield where hundreds or even more demon gods were buried. Countless years ago, these gods retreated from the legendary heaven realm and were chased by a supreme almighty of the human race. In the end, these hundreds of demon gods were completely buried. Even though the natives of these worlds were different, the records of this matter were strangely consistent. Many people couldn't help but gasp because of this. Exactly who is so terrifying to be able to annihilate over 100 fiendish gods in a single breath? Could it be a figure at the imperial monarch realm of legend? Everyone had no way of guessing. After all, even gods were legends to them, not to mention an emperor-level existence that was above countless gods. However, after receiving confirmation, everyone became excited. If this was true, then there would be too many opportunities for them to get their hands on. This originally had nothing to do with the indigenous people of this world. After all, the goal of everyone was not the indigenous people of this world. However, something happened. After a certain evil celestial realm expert massacred a world, he discovered that the ancient records of this world were extraordinary. Many of them pointed directly to the great Tao of the gods, and there were many amazing secret techniques and magic tools sealed. For a time, the darkness descended. Chapter 2038. After a person obtained the benefits of living, everyone went crazy. The inheritance of the gods was still too far away. Although a super-large battlefield of the dusk of the gods had been explored, it had not been fully explored. In fact, the progress had only just begun. However, these benefits could be seen and touched. They were just some aboriginals. What was there to worry about? In order to prove one's Tao, slaughtering the humans of a world was nothing. Although the human race was a famous race in the universe and had many experts, that was only in the headquarters of the heavenly realm. They weren't as strong in other places. Moreover, this world had been sealed for so many years. Obviously, it had no connection with other places. There wouldn't be any powerful existences here, let alone any old monsters. For the entire universe, this was only the beginning of the chaos. The experts who were originally high and mighty but amiable tore off their masks of gentleness. One world after another was crushed in the universe. Although the local natives also had some secret forces to fight back, and even some profound realm experts had fallen, in the face of these experts that came from countless worlds like a swarm of locusts, even if they could block one wave, they couldn't block the others. In addition, some experts from the evil Tao and ghost Tao were mixed in, stirring up trouble and slaughtering wantonly to absorb the essence of the human race to strengthen themselves. Wails and wails filled the entire universe. The entire universe was in chaos. Rumble! In the universe, a floating city was directly trampled into pieces by a huge foot. In the entire city there were countless deaths and injuries. Countless people screamed, and their essence and blood instantly swept up a huge tornado, which was sucked into a big mouth that appeared in the void on the spot. All the stars were shaking. In the universe, many people couldn't help but be terrified when they saw this scene. These extraterrestrial visitors were stronger than the previous one. With a single stomp, they directly crushed a city that had existed in the universe for countless years. The formation that was set up on the city couldn't even withstand a single blow and was directly crushed. Oh heavens, oh earth, what have we done wrong? Why did we attract these devils? Everyone was going crazy. Within the void, a figure appeared indistinctly in front of everyone. It was a tall figure, and it wasn't a human. Instead, it was a race that they had never seen before. With a malevolent smile on his face, his mouth was wide open, revealing a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth. This tall figure didn't care about the millions of living beings that were turned into dust with a single stomp. Although the quality is a little poor, fortunately, the human race here is densely packed, so it doesn't hurt to eat more. This was in existence at the peak of the profound death stage and was extremely frightening. To the humans here, he was basically an invincible existence. Damn it, beast! A silhouette emerged from the void and rushed towards the huge silhouette. It was a human expert. At this moment, everyone united because they knew that these extraterrestrial visitors were a group of devils. They wouldn't let any of them go. You overestimate yourself. This tall figure didn't care about anything at all. He directly sent a slap over. This native expert was directly slapped by this slap, causing him to explode, turning into a cloud of blood mist that was absorbed by the figure. The tall figure glanced at the floating city that had already turned into a land of death. Immediately, he lost interest and headed to other areas. Swoosh! Sword radiance swept out in all directions and blasted out. The golden sword radiance pierced through the sky. The tall figure didn't even have time to react, and was slashed into pieces on the spot. Dead, dead. That devil is dead. What a powerful sword aura. Even the sky has been slashed into two. So powerful, so terrifying. In the distance, some experts of the human race stared at this scene dumbfoundedly, as if they couldn't believe it at all. To them, the enemy was like a god that they couldn't defeat, but he was killed by a single sword strike. Such strength was terrifyingly strong. But why do I feel that this sword radiance is a little familiar? As if I've seen it before? It's impossible. Our world's laws have been shattered, and the path forward has been cut off. There won't be anyone stronger than a transcendent realm expert appearing in this world. All of them came from the extraterrestrial world. We can't be compared to them at all. Even if someone could kill them, it wouldn't be us. Moreover, this was merely a small battlefield in the entire universe. This time, it was unknown how many top-notch experts from various worlds had entered in one go. Even if only a small portion of them joined in, it would still be a calamity for the entire human race in the universe. The entire universe was filled with countless people. It was too tragic. Corpses were everywhere. Many of them didn't even have their bones left behind. Only the ruins of the universe were left. Faced with the crazy attacks of these visitors, the local natives also used their own trump card. Some of the methods that had been passed down since ancient times and some methods that had never been used before were unsealed. For a time, they actually managed to inflict great damage to these visitors. However, these injuries didn't calm these visitors who had fallen into a frenzy. Instead, they became even more frenzied. It was as though they had received a confirmation of their conjecture. There were indeed many ancient inheritances in this universe, inheritances that were enough to make these visitors go crazy. A green figure was floating in the universe. In front of him were pieces of world fragment. Under the sudden attack of these powerful experts, the entire world was being fought over and shattered into pieces. Even if they had handed over the ancient records, it was useless. These extraterrestrial visitors were fighting over the ancient record. The entire world had collapsed, and countless people had died. On the ground, countless people were screaming and wailing. They knelt beside their dead relatives and cried helplessly. However, there was nothing they could do. Master, Master, wake up. Father, how can you leave just like that? It was tragic. It was too tragic. Fortunately, none of the extraterrestrial experts were from the evil path. Otherwise, they would have been eaten as food. The green figure was silent. The world in front of him was still vivid in his mind. Yuhua Boundary, one of the world overlords that once dominated this universe. Now there were only ruins left. It was desolate. Even though he had ruthlessly punished Yuhua Boundary in the past, he didn't expect that one day, Yuhua Boundary would end up like this. What a big world. I'm afraid there are tens of billions of people. At this moment, there were already a few tyrannical figures in the void. All of them were staring at this broken world with ferocious eyes. Although most of them had already died in the aftermath of the battle, the remaining people and the various demonic beasts in this world represented an endless amount of essence and blood. I, the ancestor, have taken a fancy to this world. Don't fight with me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Get lost. You have absorbed tens of millions of people on the way here. Now, you still dare to fight with us? The eyes of these demons and monsters were shining. They even looked like they were going to fall out on the spot for the wealth. In the entire world fragment, countless people were shivering. In front of these ferocious people, they didn't even have the strength to fight back. Even the strongest among them couldn't withstand a single blow from these people. They weren't on the same level at all. Forget it. Whoever wants it can get it. How much you can get will depend on your own ability. A figure laughed strangely and rushed in. Such a primitive area without the protection of any powerful forces was not easy to find. It should be known that the myriad heavens and myriad worlds were protected by powerful forces. It was not an easy task to find such an almost ownerless place without many people's protection. If they dared to kill like this in the Xian world, they would soon be besieged by countless people. No matter how strong they were, it would be useless. However, as soon as the person's voice fell, a sword light flashed in the void. It grew longer and longer until it was hundreds of feet long. Swoosh! This ray of sword light slid down from the sky and directly pounced down. The figure immediately turned pale with fright. He tried to dodge, but he could not do anything. He was killed on the spot and turned into pieces on the spot. Who is it? Who is it? The patriarchs of the evil path roared and swept their spirit consciousness in all directions, as if they wanted to find the person who had secretly attacked them, the person who wants your lives. The sword light illuminated the dark universe with that cold and emotionless voice. At this moment, these demons and monsters finally saw clearly the green figure standing in the void. It was a handsome young man with an indifferent expression, just like the god of death in the universe. "You are Yi." Someone recognized the young man's identity, and immediately widened his eyes in disbelief. He did not know how things had turned out this way. Shouldn't Yi Shiwen be hiding from the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union? How could he still dare to appear, and hear no less? However, before he could say the young man's full name, a ray of sword light had already slashed into his body. His body exploded with a loud bang. These powerful, profound death-stage existences, the patriarchs of a world, were simply no match for this ray of sword light. All of them exploded one after another. He is indeed abnormal. This was the last thought in everyone's mind. That rumor was not completely false. It should be said that a large part of it was true. After killing these people, the young man set up a formation in this broken world and quickly disappeared into the universe. Chapter 2039. The entire universe was filled with screams and wails. With the appearance of these extraterrestrial visitors, the entire universe seemed to have fallen into hell. At this moment, on the ancient road of a huge world, two strange figures were slowly walking on the road. One of them didn't look like a human. Instead, it was an extremely skinny old man. He was as thin as a match, as if he didn't have eyelids. His scarlet eyes were like the most terrifying red lanterns. The other one was a spider monster that didn't even reach the old man's waist. It was crawling on the ground with its 6 claws moving forward. Along the way, it traveled further and further away. Everywhere it went, the quintessence of everything was destroyed, and the trees withered. As soon as a few people passed by it, they felt their bodies twitch, and before long, they were turned into desiccated corpses. All of their quintessence and blood had been sucked dry. The destination of these two people was the true martial school, which was less than 1,000 miles away. "I didn't expect such a world to exist here," said the old man. His voice was hoarse and torn, as unpleasant as an owl's cry. No one expected the deity's battlefield to be just a short distance away. The human clan's inheritance in these worlds should be related to this deity's battlefield, said the 6-legged spider monster with a weird laugh. "Let's hurry up. Otherwise, we won't be able to get anything if those old fellows make a move," said the skinny old man. "Let them snatch the deity's tomb. We'll directly obtain the deity's inheritance. The indigenous humans here don't know that they're sitting on a mountain of treasures. They're affected by the laws here, and will never be able to break through the transcendent realm. However, we're different. With these inheritances in our hands, we can create a deity." You're right." The two of them moved slowly. However, they seemed to be moving slowly, but they were actually moving very quickly. The distance of 1,000 miles didn't even take a moment. Along the way, there were already dried corpses along the way. It was like a road leading to hell. It was eerie and horrifying. "Who are you? How dare you approach the true martial school?" A loud yell resounded from the sky. The entire true martial school was on high alert. The news from the outer domain had already spread in. Many extraterrestrial visitors were wantonly slaughtering. Even the people of the true martial school didn't dare to relax. They had already been vigilant. In addition, the two of them didn't hide themselves. So, they were discovered immediately. Just as his voice faded, several young disciples flew over from the void. All of them were truth-level disciples. Without waiting for them to continue asking questions, they saw that 6-legged spider monster directly open its mouth and spit out a spider silk. It instantly turned into a big net in midair, and trapped all the disciples of the true martial university in it. These young men turned pale with fright. They wanted to dodge, but there was no way to do so. In the end, they were caught in the web at lightning speed. After that, they were dragged down and swallowed by the six-legged spider monster. In the end, you still have a bit of cultivation. This taste is much better than those ordinary people. The six-legged spider monster cackled strangely. It was eerie and terrifying. The skinny old man looked at the sky and said, "The annoying little bugs are coming." As soon as he finished speaking, many powerhouses appeared around him. The weakest among them was a terrifying existence at the legendary peak. There were even many Sage Realm powerhouses and a great Sage Realm powerhouse among them. All of them were the true martial school's powerhouses who had been arranged to guard this area. "Who are you?" The great sage leader looked at these two figures with an ugly expression. They were obviously not humans, but they gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. Extraterrestrial visitors. In his mind, this term suddenly popped up. These two people were likely to be the extraterrestrial visitors who had recently caused an uproar. As a high-level member of the true martial school, he knew far more than the average person. These people probably came from a high-level world. These masters came for the inheritance in these worlds. They had already destroyed many worlds. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but be shocked and a little afraid. As he was about to release the news, he saw the old man's claw out, and the entire void was torn apart. Then, the old man's claw had directly crushed the old man's head. The old man pulled out the brain and swallowed it. The whole scene looked extremely shocking. Everyone was stunned. A great sage master was killed directly by this person's claw. Such combat power was too terrifying. At this time, how could everyone still not understand that these two people were probably among the extraterrestrial visitors that everyone had to guard against? However, before they could report it, they were already caught by the six-legged spider monster. Then, it swallowed all of them in one gulp. There were no other superfluous movements or great magical powers. It was just a simple move. Yet, these elites of the true martial school in the past had no power to fight back. They were completely reduced to blood and flesh. The two experts walked all the way to the depths of true martial school. Along the way, all the people they encountered were slaughtered by them. Everything happened too fast. Everyone didn't even have time to spread the news, and they were already killed. They weren't a match for them at all. Therefore, they killed all the way to the depths of the true martial school before they were discovered. The array in the entire school was completely activated. All kinds of divine lights flashed, and the masters from all sides also rushed over. At this moment, a powerful figure descended and flew in front of the two. Looking at the disciples who were killed by them along the way, his face was extremely ugly. He couldn't help but say in a deep voice, "May I know the names of the two seniors?" "Tsk, you really can endure." The old man couldn't help but mock as if he was talking about something insignificant. "Do you want to say something nice so that we will let you go? Are the two seniors also here for the ancient books of our true martial school?" said the figure. "I am the true martial school master, Huang Wuji. Are you here for your ancient books?" "Yes, that's right, at least one of the purposes." The six-legged spider monster glanced at Huang Wuji and said, "If this is the case, I hope the two seniors will be merciful. We are willing to hand over all the ancient books. We only hope that the seniors will not start a massacre." Huang Wuji's face changed several times, and he could only clench his teeth and say, "For a leader of a sect to be forced into their sect, and even be forced to hand over all of their ancient books, one could imagine how intense the humiliation was." With Huang Wuji's pride, he could only say such words because he had no other choice but to compromise. He got more information than the average person. These extraterrestrial visitors were strong and weak, but they all had the terrifying ability to destroy their entire world. In the face of these powerhouses, even someone as proud as him had to lower his head, unless he wanted his sect to flow with rivers of blood. This was not just a matter of attacking the true martial school, but if necessary, they could even destroy the entire world. Although these ancient books were precious, could they be more important than the countless disciples? Could they be more important than the countless people of the true martial school? If the ancient books were lost, they could be copied again, but if the people were gone, they were really gone. TSK, you are a bit interesting. We haven't even made a move, and you have already surrendered. The old man laughed strangely and said. His voice was as unpleasant to the ears as a night owl, and it spread throughout the entire true martial university. Unfortunately, we don't agree. We can take whatever ancient books we want. As for you guys, be obedient and become my blood food. What? Huang Wuji was suddenly shocked. He didn't expect these two people to be so ruthless. Even if he was willing to hand over the ancient books, they still refused to let the true martial school go. Is the true martial world going to die of old age? Is it going to end in my hands? Thinking of this, his heart was incomparably painful, but his reaction was not slow at all. He shouted, "Then don't blame us for being ruthless. Attack!" Along with his command, the arrays that were already revived were activated one after another. A terrifying torrent of energy swept out. These arrays that had saved the true martial school many times in the past displayed a terrifying might that far exceeded the power of ordinary transcendent realm experts. Ruthless? I want to see how you are going to be ruthless. The old man laughed strangely. He didn't put these attacks in his eyes at all. Boom! With a series of loud explosions, these attacks directly blasted the place where the two of them were, forming a huge mushroom cloud that slowly rose up. No one held back, and they did their best. Die. Suddenly, in the mushroom cloud, a cold shout came out, and then a big hand came out of the void. It directly penetrated the layers of space, smashed the layers of arrays, and directly grabbed towards Huang Wuji. Huang Wuji immediately retreated. With the power of the array, he kept retreating, and barely avoided the huge claw attack. This is... Huang Wuji was in disbelief. The might of this claw was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. In an instant, all the arrays were destroyed. If he hadn't dodged in time, he would have been crushed by this claw as well. Is this all you've got? Is this all you've got? The old man laughed heartily. Then, his figure became bigger and bigger. In the mushroom cloud, a huge figure grew bigger and bigger. Soon, it became as huge as a legendary mountain. The huge Dharma idol true body of the true martial school had huge scarlet eyes. It was incomparably terrifying. Chapter 2040. It was like a mummy overlooking the entire world of the true martial school. What a terrifying magical power! Huang Wuji was no longer the ignorant kid from before. When Yi Shiwen had returned previously, he had seen such a magical power. It was called Heaven and Earth Law Idol. However, he had never heard of a heaven and earth manifestation becoming so huge. Is that all? I'm really disappointed. The skinny old man shook his head and said with a disappointed look, "Since you can't satisfy me, I shall destroy it. Damn it. Now that things have come to this, there's no other way. True martial stone sword." He yelled, and a shocking sword light surged from within the true martial school. It soared into the sky and shattered everything. An incomparably huge sword slowly rose from the ground. Huang Wuji held the true martial stone sword in his hand, and his expression was extremely cold. At this moment, he was expressionless. He looked at the old man coldly and said, "You forced me to do this." The others were completely terrified. Huang Wuji had to use the true martial stone sword again. Every time they had to use the true martial stone sword, it meant that the school might be destroyed. As expected, there's a treasure here. To think that such a treasure exists in such a weak world. There must be something special about it. The skinny old man's eyes suddenly widened, and he became a little crazy. Even to him, the true martial stone sword was a precious treasure. Huang Wuji's expression twisted, and he yelled out loud. The long sword suddenly slashed downwards, as if all his energy had been sucked out. His face instantly turned pale. Dang! This terrifying sword aura was blocked by an incomparably huge coffin. And this skinny old man, who was as thin as a match, was already inside the coffin. This old man was a powerhouse when he was alive. After he died, he became a mummy. Later on, he underwent a corpse transformation and became a corpse expert. He had even refined the coffin that contained his own body into a magic treasure. It had both offensive and defensive capabilities, and was extremely impressive. If you were to refine this sword, you might be able to severely injure me. However, you're just a mere transcendent realm. You're still far from being able to injure me. He laughed coldly. Then, an incomparably huge coffin suddenly appeared in his hand. Boom! This coffin shattered the horizon, and then forcefully shattered everything as it ruthlessly smashed towards Huang Wuji. Not good. Huang Wuji immediately panicked and charged forward with the true martial stone sword in his hand. Clang! There was another deafening sound of metal colliding. The true martial stone sword and the huge coffin collided violently in the air. A terrifying shockwave swept out and destroyed everything. Damn it, how can he be so strong? Huang Wuji roared. His countenance contorted as the veins on his arms bulged out. He felt a terrifying energy that could shake the heavens and earth pass through his arms and into his body. Even though he had used the true martial stone sword to reduce most of the force, it was still terrifying. Dang, dang, dang! He kept retreating, shattering the void, but he still couldn't get rid of that terrifying power. Bang! The true martial stone sword in his hand immediately flew out and stabbed into a mountain, shattering the mountain into pieces. His entire arm actually exploded on the spot. Fresh blood splattered out. Huang Wuji let out a muffled groan, and his face turned extremely pale. His eyes were filled with despair. They had just exchanged blows. One move, just one move. The others didn't fight personally, but he did. Just one move was enough to severely injure him. The true martial stone sword flew away, and his entire arm was blown off. Apart from him, no one else knew how terrifying it was. The incomparably huge old man's Dharma form didn't even look at Huang Wuji. Instead, he walked towards the true martial stone sword step by step with a greedy look on his face. Such a precious treasure was finally going to fall into his hands. Boom! 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 Deafening explosions could be heard. Every step the old man took left a huge imprint on the ground. Oh no, this guy is actually heading towards the true martial stone sword. Huang Wuji was instantly horrified. At this moment, the true martial stone sword was their last life-saving measure. Apart from it, they had no other means to contend against these extraterrestrial visitors. Without the true martial stone sword, they could only sit and wait for death. Thinking of this, he couldn't sit still any longer. He quickly took a big stride forward and flew towards the true martial stone sword. Scram! The old man said coldly and sent Huang Wuji flying with a slap. Huang Wuji was like a cannonball, flying away like a meteor. He felt that his entire body was about to disintegrate. Without the buffer of the true martial stone sword, that huge force instantly poured into his body. The fact that he didn't explode on the spot was already proof that his physical body was extraordinary. Also, the old man didn't seem to have any intention of dealing with him seriously. A bitter smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The foundation established by his ancestors had gone through countless trials and tribulations before finally being passed down to him. Was it going to end in his hands today? He was very clear that even if he had the true martial stone sword, he was still no match for this old man. In fact, the true martial school had already surrendered. There was no point in resisting anymore. How could there be such a terrifying monster? Even those demons weren't this terrifying. Although it couldn't be compared to the terrifying demon Shadow that appeared in the true martial school, it was still far beyond his understanding. In fact, it was even stronger than little junior brother. A green silhouette flashed in his mind. That stubborn silhouette soared into the sky like a real dragon. No one could restrain him. The only thing he was glad about was that the true martial school still had an inheritance like little junior brother. As long as little junior brother wasn't dead, the true martial school might be able to rise again in the future. However, he probably wouldn't be able to see that day anymore. As he thought of this, he couldn't help but feel unusually bitter. Suddenly, he saw a green figure pass by. That's impossible, I must have seen wrongly. He couldn't believe it himself. However, at this moment, he crashed into a mountain and created a huge hole. Only then did he barely manage to stop. He quickly ignored his injuries and forced himself to fly up. However, just as the old man was about to come into contact with the true martial stone sword, a shocking sword light suddenly descended from the sky and pierced through the void. Clang! This sword pierced through the sky like a flying immortal. It illuminated everything. It was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. It was extremely terrifying. As far as the eyes could see, the void was shattering piece by piece, and countless pieces of space were directly turned into ashes. At the critical moment, the old man withdrew his claw-like hand, and then he roared into the sky. Who dares to stop the withered corpse ancestor from doing something? Withered corpse ancestor? I'll turn you into a corpse today. Accompanied by a cold snort, a figure came from the void and appeared in front of everyone. Everyone from the true martial school was in despair when they saw that supreme figure again. That green robe was fluttering in the void. Everyone was a little stunned. Some even suspected that they were dreaming. How could it be possible? How could that figure appear here at this time? This was impossible. Everyone knew that that person had clearly entered another world. How could he appear here? However, when they took a closer look, who else could this figure be other than Yi Shiwen? It was indeed the figure that everyone had been talking about. Although many juniors of the true martial school didn't see it with their own eyes, they had heard about it from their seniors. That was an eternal and great existence. Whenever the true martial school was in trouble, he would always appear. This time, he had appeared again. Friend, if you want to divide this world, we can give you a share. However, if not, don't blame us for being impolite, said the withered corpse ancestor coldly. His eyes were filled with killing intent. His blood-red pupils that were like lanterns looked exceptionally terrifying. Divide? Do you think you're worthy? Said Yi Shiwen lightly. He breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. At this critical moment, he had finally rushed back. Friend, don't go too far. The withered corpse patriarch's expression grew colder and colder as golden godliness spread out over him. He was a terrifying godmyth, someone who, even in the profound world, would be the type of person who could overturn clouds and rain with the flip of a hand. If it wasn't for the amazing power of that sword, he wouldn't have given Yi Shiwen any face at all. Too far? Can they be compared to you? It seems that you've killed a lot along the way. Yi Shiwen's tone became colder and colder. Friend, are you talking about these ants? Ha ha, do you want to show off your strength to these ants? Don't you know that for us, there is nothing more important than confirming the Tao? This world contains the inheritance of the gods and the secret of confirming the Tao. Don't tell me you don't want it? The withered corpse ancestor was still trying to tempt Yi Shiwen. You're courting death. Yi Shiwen spat out these words coldly. You don't know what's good for you. I gave you a chance because I think highly of you. How dare you not appreciate it? That's good. Watch me suck you dry and turn you into a mummy. Then, you will become my proudest collection. Ha! The withered corpse ancestor laughed sinisterly. Die. He finally attacked in anger. Chapter 2041. A monstrous aura erupted. That was a terrifying attack that belonged to a legendary expert. It wasn't something that an ordinary person could withstand. The moment his aura swept out, many of the true martial school's arrays couldn't withstand it and exploded with a loud bang. Many disciples couldn't react in time and were instantly injured. Humph! Yi Shiwen took a step forward, and instantly, this imposing aura was cleanly dispelled. A mere profound death stage cultivator actually dares to obstruct this ancestor from doing something. I think you must be tired of living. The withered corpse old ancestor was slightly surprised. He did not expect a profound death realm cultivator to be able to dispel his aura. This was not something an ordinary person could do. The profound death stage. In the eyes of others, you might be considered as a formidable figure. However, in front of this ancestor, you are nothing. However, that was all there was to it. A mere peak profound death stage expert was simply not on the same level as a legendary figure like him. Even if he was only at the first level of the Paong realm, he was far stronger than a profound death realm cultivator. Tired of living? Yi Shiwen chuckled. Many people said that in the past. However, they all died in my hands. What an arrogant kid! The withered corpse old ancestor said coldly. Rumble! The boundless corpse Dao hell descended. It was a boundless world. In an instant, it was as if they had intruded into a world where the corpse Dao prevailed. All kinds of dried corpses and zombies rampaged in it. When they descended, they wanted to destroy the entire world and turn it into a corpse Dao world. He was about to make a move. The laws of the entire world were distorted in an instant. Everything was about to be changed. It was about to turn into a corpse Dao world. In the blink of an eye, they could change the laws of the entire world. What kind of strength was this? This was the strength of a legend. In an instant, they could change the laws of a small world like the true martial domain. They could even destroy a small world like the true martial domain in an instant. Why were they called legends? It was because their strength was already a mythical existence to others. Different worlds had different natures. The strength of the laws also differed greatly. If they were in a big world like the Xian world or the desolate ancient world, they would never be able to do it with their cultivation. However, compared to these big worlds, the true martial domain's laws were relatively simple. So, it was relatively easy to modify them. Therefore, their terrifying strength was fully reflected. The withered corpse ancestor had a cold smile on his face. He didn't care about this at all. Turning countless people into corpses would only make him stronger. Withered corpse patriarch, don't you dare! Didn't you say you would give me half? Roared the six-legged spider. Don't worry, I'll keep half of the blood essence. Although they teamed up because of benefits, he didn't dare to underestimate this teammate. He didn't want to be stabbed in the back by this guy at a critical moment. That's more like it. The six-legged spider chuckled and stopped talking. You're really treating me like I'm nothing. Yi Shiwen coldly said, mythical character, I think you have been praised for a long time and have already gone crazy. Yi Shiwen was so angry that he laughed. His whole body's imposing aura swept out. He had a kind of spirit that could swallow mountains and rivers. Now, I'll let you know that mythical characters are nothing special. They will still die and fall. A scroll directly appeared on his body. It was the yin-yang life and death diagram. Yi Shiwen, who was originally monstrous, directly blasted out a punch. His whole body erupted with an astonishing imposing aura and fiercely rushed towards the withered corpse ancestor. You're courting death, said the withered corpse ancestor coldly. He directly soared into the sky. With a bang, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The terrifying momentum of the attack almost shattered the entire world. A scroll flew out and got bigger and bigger. It suddenly covered the entire sky and protected the true force world within it. It was the yin-yang life and death diagram. What a good treasure! It's a pity that it's in the hands of a nobody like you. It's such a waste. The withered corpse ancestor's eyes suddenly lit up. He could see at a glance that this yin-yang life and death diagram was an extremely good treasure. Even if it's a good treasure, it's not something you can touch, Yi Shiwen sneered. His whole body's golden figure swept up a frenzy. His surging vitality rose to the sky. In an instant, cracks appeared in the sky. Boom! Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch. The fist energy cut through eternity and shattered the vast sky. It was like a galaxy blasting towards the withered corpse ancestor. With the protection of the yin-yang life and death diagram, he did not have to worry so much at all. You're courting death. The withered corpse ancestor screamed sharply and then fiercely clawed out. The fist and the claw collided fiercely in midair. Dang! There was a loud noise. The most brilliant light spread out in an astonishing manner. The fist energy shattered everything. The battle between these two powerful masters directly shattered everything. What kind of battle is this? It's too terrifying. Since ancient times, I'm afraid I haven't really seen a battle of this level. It's really shattering the world. So strong. The last battle that could destroy the world was recorded in the ancient books. It was probably during the Star Beast invasion. I wonder how many ancestors died at that time. The divinities of both sides collided in the void and sprayed out. How is this possible? How can you also have divinities? The withered corpse ancestor said in disbelief. He clearly saw divinities gushing out from Yi Shiwen's body. Moreover, what made him even more shocked was that the physical body of the person in front of him was actually so strong to such a terrifying extent. He was very clear that his previous life was a master of physical cultivation. In addition, after the corpse transformation and becoming the withered corpse king, his physical body had been enhanced by the corpse Tao. It was incomparably terrifying. However, he had never heard of a physical body that could actually compete with a mythical expert while being at the profound death realm. There are too many things in this world that you don't know. Yi Shiwen sneered and did not show any weakness. In the sky full of golden light, his black hair fluttered in the wind. Yi Shiwen, you're Yi Shiwen. The withered corpse ancestor finally remembered who this person was. Wasn't this Yi Shiwen who had caused an uproar some time ago? He had seen Yi Shiwen's silhouette before, but it was just a hasty glance. This was because he did not attempt to kill Yi Shiwen. After all, he still had the ancient ancestor religion master standing behind him. But now that he remembered, his eyes suddenly became suspicious. There's no need to look. I alone am enough to deal with you, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. Hearing Yi Shiwen's words, the withered corpse ancestor was finally relieved. He laughed strangely and said, "Young man, you still lack some cultivation. Although Ting Yaoyang died in your hands, he died because he was possessed by a heart demon. Compared to a true mythical expert, you are still far from it. Moreover, even Ting Yaoyang is not this old man's opponent." His face was filled with arrogance. So what if these geniuses had a shocking cultivation base? Compared to them, they were simply not qualified to be mentioned in the same breath. Sometimes, age was the greatest asset. That long period of time could offset the difference in talent. Do you really think so? It seems that the huge benefits in front of you have blinded your eyes, Yi Shiwen said indifferently, but his momentum was overwhelming. There was an illusion of a peerless master. The two attacked again and launched the most terrifying battle. Both sides were good at physical strength. In the void, the most terrifying sparks were produced when they collided. Especially when Yi Shiwen fused with the Fist Tao incarnation. His combat power was fully unleashed and climbed to the peak. The void was completely chaotic. Both sides had fought all the way to the depths of the starry sky. Yi Shiwen deliberately led him out, and the withered corpse ancestor did not care. Anyway, for him, it was just a little earlier or a little later. Boom! 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 In the universe, such collisions could burst out 1,000 times, or even 10,000 times in an instant. It was so fast that it was astonishing. Yi Shiwen, who had fused with the martial Tao incarnation, was not at a disadvantage when facing the withered corpse ancestor, a legendary figure. Especially the contest of physical strength. Both sides were good at physical strength. When they collided in the sky, everything was shattered. The withered corpse ancestor was frightened. Although he didn't show it on his face, he was actually very shocked. He finally believed the rumor. Perhaps it wasn't just a rumor. How could Yi Shiwen not have any ability if he could make such a big name for himself? But even so, Yi Shiwen's strength was completely beyond his imagination. He was incomparably furious in his heart. As a legend stage expert, he had actually been forced to such a state by a mere profound death stage expert like Yi Shiwen. Regardless of what reason he had, if news of this were to spread, he would never be able to meet anyone in the future. In the future, whenever Yi Shiwen's great achievements were mentioned, he would become the greatest villain. Go to hell! A terrifying claw shadow slashed down. It was incomparably powerful. Although he was angry in his heart, he was also an incomparably powerful person. How could he show weakness? Forget it. I originally wanted to use you to train myself, but now it seems that there is no need for that. Yi Shiwen's indifferent voice was heard. Behind him, an even bigger figure slowly merged into his body. It was a venerable holding a sword. It was like the incarnation of the sword Tao, sweeping everything in its path. A second martial Tao incarnation? How could this happen? The withered corpse ancestor looked at Yi Shiwen in horror. He had never imagined that Yi Shiwen would actually condense a second martial Tao incarnation. Condensing a martial Tao incarnation and condensing a martial Tao incarnation were completely different. They were not even on the same level. Swish! A brilliant sword light, like a long river of the sword Tao, slashed horizontally. Chapter 2042. Yi Shiwen moved. Moreover, he took the initiative to launch an attack on the withered corpse ancestor. This was too shocking. It was inconceivable. Especially for the people of the true martial school, any one of them was a terrifying opponent that could destroy the world. They were simply existences that existed in myths and legends. Even the strongest Huang Wuji, who used the true martial stone sword, would not be able to deal with them, let alone the others. However, Yi Shiwen was actually able to gain the upper hand in such a battle. It was simply terrifying. So strong, little junior brother has become stronger again. Huang Wuji could not hide the horror in his eyes. After cheering for so long, Yi Shiwen actually became stronger again, and not just by a little, but by a large margin. He could feel that the last time Yi Shiwen came back, he was not even 1/10 as strong as this time. What kind of miraculous encounter did Yi Shiwen have? Even he began to doubt whether he had made the right decision to stay in the true martial university. Only a few hundred years had passed, but he felt as if thousands of years had passed. Especially when compared with Yi Shiwen's rapid advancement, he seemed to be even more inferior. Was he going to leave the true martial school like Yi Shiwen? However, the current situation made him really unable to leave the true martial school with peace of mind, even though he knew that in the face of such a powerhouse, it did not make much difference whether he stayed or not. However, no matter what, Yi Shiwen's appearance made them heave a sigh of relief. They were saved. During this period of time, he was under too much pressure. In fact, it made him feel like he was about to collapse. A world that once dominated this universe collapsed in the hands of those outsiders. Although it was proven in the end that not all worlds had the godlike inheritance, this could not stop the madness of these outsiders. It was better to kill 10,000 wrongly than to let go of one wrongly. This was the most typical way of thinking in their hearts. With little junior brother here, at least the true martial domain would be spared. As for the other worlds, he could no longer care about them. These outsiders were too strong. At this moment, Yi Shiwen's tide-like attack had already bloomed. Boom! Almost at that moment, the entire universe seemed to be destroyed. The yin-yang life and death diagram, under the attack of this powerful shock wave, also began to tremble crazily. The yin-yang life and death power began to counterattack crazily, protecting the entire true martial domain. This was too terrifying. Even the people of true martial school, who were hiding under the yin-yang life and death diagram, felt a trembling feeling. In the face of such a terrifying power, although they were unwilling to admit it, they also knew in their hearts that they were just like ants. Previously, when Bai Majiao revived, it wasn't this terrifying. At least, after Huang Wuji used the true martial stone sword, he was still able to resist it. But now it was not at a level that they could come into contact with. It was like a battle between the legendary gods. Bang! The withered corpse ancestor barely withstood Yi Shiwen's sword, but his whole body was constantly retreating. There was an indescribable horror in his eyes. Although he had withstood Yi Shiwen's sword, he only felt that his body was trembling. It was as if his internal organs were injured, and it was pressing into his soul. He had never encountered such a powerful existence, such a powerful opponent. His strength was his physical body and his strength. He had always used this to crush all the strong enemies, but this was the first time that someone had gained the upper hand. This made him unable to help but reveal a look of fear on his face. However, such a look of fear only flashed for a moment, and then disappeared. He was a powerful myth realm expert, and he wouldn't allow anyone to challenge his authority. Demigods were a term used for people in their realm, and they were already half-gods. How could they allow others to challenge their authority? They definitely wouldn't tolerate it. Kill! The withered corpse ancestor roared, and the corpse energy soared into the sky. The corpse energy filled the sky and the void collapsed. A huge star in the universe suddenly shattered, and the most terrifying cracks swept over. He was no longer empty-handed. There was a broken halberd in his hand. This broken halberd's head was broken in half, and its whole body was densely packed with cracks. This was a powerful instrument that belonged to his predecessor. After he died, it accompanied his predecessor to sleep. Later, after he awakened his spiritual wisdom, it fell into his hands, but he had never used it. No enemy had forced him to this level. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. The entire body of this broken halberd had an inexplicable bronze color, and blood was still dripping from the cracks of the broken halberd. This blood contained dreadful energy fluctuations. He didn't know whether it had stained the blood of the enemies it had beheaded, or its owner. Countless years had passed, and the vicissitudes of time had passed. However, those bloodstains didn't show the slightest sign of drying up. On the contrary, they still looked the same as when they first stained the halberd. The owner of this broken halberd must be an extremely terrifying existence. Yi Shiwen, it is your honor to die under this broken halberd. The withered corpse ancestor brandished his broken halberd and streaked across the vast sky. Endless chaos fell down from the sky, and hacked towards Yi Shiwen's face with monstrous ferocity. Dang! Yi Shiwen directly attacked. A wisp of divine light splashed out from his fingertip, and wrapped his entire palm. Then, he forcibly clashed with the broken halberd, and let the monstrous power sweep over. The golden divine light broke through the boundless corpse energy, and directly grabbed the head of the broken halberd. It directly collided with a terrifying sound of collision. Walla lala! When the terrifying wave swept over, Yi Shiwen's clothes were frantically fluttering, and his hair was dancing wildly in the void. It was as if he was a small boat in a stormy sea facing a violent storm. Although it looked extremely dangerous, in fact, it was as firm as a rock. It was not something that ordinary people could shake. Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly became sharp. He narrowed his eyes. The power of this broken halberd was unparalleled, and even his arm felt slightly numb. But it ends here. Today I will lift you to heaven. Yi Shiwen's face was cold, and he shouted loudly. The golden light on his body condensed into a supreme divine way. Die! Yet another deafening roar rang out. In the void, a gigantic sharp claw tore through everything and struck out. Another mythical master made a move, and it was the six-legged spider monster. His whole body burst out with amazing divine light, and the golden divinity constantly spread out. It was too dazzling, as if in the void, another sun directly flew over. These divinities directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen to suppress him. This dreadful power could suppress everything in the world. It could even trap the gods. It was composed of all kinds of talismans. Each talisman seemed to be burning. It was burning with an astonishing power. That dreadful power was constantly splashing out. Facing Yi Shiwen, who had overlapped with two martial arts incarnations, he did not dare to underestimate him in the slightest. A person who had fused with a martial art clone was already treated as a peerless genius, let alone someone who had fused with two. Given his age, it was simply shocking, and it was not something that ordinary people could imagine. Clang! Yi Shiwen didn't panic. His body constantly spurted out golden divinities, and transformed into monstrous sword chi that flew out. It sprinkled down like a rain of light. It was extremely dazzling. However, these dazzling sword lights contained a terrifying power that could destroy an entire planet. The six-legged spider monster's huge cage collided with the sky full of light rain, and it could not get close to Yi Shiwen at all, so it could not suppress Yi Shiwen. From afar, Yi Shiwen looked like a god, and the golden divinity covered his whole body, like a supreme god, completely condensed. This was like a real battle between the heavens and the earth. Two mythical masters controlled the laws, distorting everything and smashing everything, while Yi Shiwen was strong enough to defeat all laws. No matter what kind of laws, they were all broken. Above Yi Shiwen's head, the five elements Qian Yuan diagram appeared, protecting him. At this time, Yi Shiwen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and suddenly punched out. At this time, there was actually a kind of simple and powerful Tao aura intertwined with the endless fist Tao laws. How could Yi Shiwen not understand the principle of breaking 1 finger? Injuring 10 fingers is not as good as injuring 10 fingers. He immediately decided to kill the withered corpse old man first. Boom! Yi Shiwen's terrifying fist strength pierced through the space, and instantly arrived in front of the withered corpse old man. There was a violent tremor in the sky, as if it was about to completely shatter. On the other side, the 6-legged spider monster directly broke through Yi Shiwen's sword rain, and directly bombarded the withered corpse old man. Clang! All of his attacks could not attack Yi Shiwen's body at all, and were completely absorbed by the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram. At this time, Yi Shiwen took advantage of this moment, and directly bombarded the withered corpse old man's body. The withered corpse old man roared again and again. His eyes were incomparably cold, but it was useless in the face of Yi Shiwen's all-out attack. He tried his best, but all of his defenses were directly broken. Bang! This punch directly bombarded the withered corpse old man's chest, which was as hard as iron. Bang! His whole body was like a cannonball, and with a loud bang, he was sent flying. The corpse Tao world created by his artistic conception collapsed with a loud bang. Puff! He directly spat out a mouthful of blood, and the dark green blood polluted the entire universe. Who knew how many more corpse monsters would be born in the future? Chapter 2043. In his eyes, he finally began to panic. As a demigod master, even if he was only the weakest demigod master, he still believed that he was the strongest. He did not know how many creatures he had to face to truly stand out. Even among the same level, he was an incomparably tyrannical existence. He could not find an opponent in the first level of Paong realm. In his previous life, he was a peerless master. After transforming into him, he was even more powerful now. He had never been defeated by a master of the same level, not to mention the existence of a lower level. But Yi Shiwen did it. He was too strong and calm, almost as if he did not consider the possibility of failure. His combat power had definitely reached the legend realm, even stronger than the average first level of Paong realm. With such a powerful strength, he did not even need the ancient ancestor religious leader behind him to take action. He already had enough power to protect himself. He finally understood why Yi Shiwen dared to interfere in his affairs. It turned out that he was not even taken seriously by Yi Shiwen. Was he just a whetstone? Although he was unwilling, there was no other way at all. And at this time, Yi Shiwen had already taken a step forward, not giving him any chance to breathe at all, and a foot landed. Bang! This time, he was already seriously injured and could not react at all. His chest was directly trampled, and then a hand fell from the sky and snatched his corpse core. The corpse core was the essence and all the core of his cultivation. Now that it was snatched by Yi Shiwen, he was even more vulnerable and completely died. Even if he was a corpse, he would still die, just more difficult to die than ordinary people. Yi Shiwen held the beating corpse core in his hand, like a heart. The green poisonous gas tried to corrode his palm, but was completely suppressed by the divine light. A seal word appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand, and the corpse core was sealed. Then his eyes looked at the six-legged spider monster on the other side. The six-legged spider monster was completely frightened by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's strength had thoroughly frightened him. The withered corpse old ancestor's strength was above him because he was a corpse expert himself. Ordinary people were not his opponent at all. But even so, he was unable to withstand a single blow from Yi Shiwen. One could imagine how much he was frightened by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's cold eyes swept over, and he was so scared that he almost wanted to escape. He said, "Either surrender or die. Choose for yourself." The six-legged spider monster did not want to choose either. He subconsciously wanted to escape directly by opening the space to escape, but he was shocked to find that he could not escape at all. He did not know when the space had been locked. He was completely desperate. He had seen Yi Shiwen's amazing speed, and if he could not escape using the space, there was almost no way to escape. "I am willing to surrender." The six-legged spider monster's ugly face couldn't help but reveal a conflicted expression. In the end, he chose to surrender because he had no other choice. If he didn't surrender, his fate would be the same as the withered corpse ancestor, incomparably miserable. Yi Shiwen directly crossed the long space and came in front of him, then pinched a seal, and signed a master-servant contract with the six-legged spider monster, forever and ever, generation after generation, never to resist. The six-legged spider monster was unwilling, but there was no other way. The incomparably strong Yi Shiwen had frightened him too much. Only now did he realize that even after entering the myth realm, he was not as afraid of death as before. On the contrary, he was even more afraid of death. Because all of this had not been easy, only he himself knew that he had not enjoyed enough, and he would not die so easily. After signing the master-servant contract, Yi Shiwen was relieved. With the contract in hand, he was not afraid of the six-legged spider monster going back on his words, but he did not intend to keep the six-legged spider monster by his side. With his strength, the six-legged spider monster was of little significance to his strength. However, he could keep the six-legged spider monster in the true martial school as the last resort of the true martial school. With the protection of a myth expert, Even in the Xian world, the true martial school was considered a super force. Apart from a few overlords such as the Heaven Wasteland Temple, it was also an existence that dominated a region. Unless they encountered a dark turmoil that swept across the entire universe, there would be no other things that could shake the foundation of the true martial school. He could not stay in the true martial school all the time. This was already the limit of what he could do. For the six-legged spider monster, he had no other choice. This was the result of being defeated as a weakling, and he would spend the rest of his life in the true martial school. He looked somewhat pitiful. However, Yi Shiwen didn't have any sympathy for him. After all, he didn't have anything to sympathize with. He wouldn't have been subdued by Yi Shiwen if he hadn't come to destroy the true martial world. Yi Shiwen put away the yin-yang life and death diagram, and descended into the true martial school. Little junior brother, Huang Wuji quickly greeted him. In addition to him, many old friends of Yi Shiwen also came forward to greet him. Not many years had passed in total. It wasn't a very short period of time in terms of the long lifespan of a cultivator. However, it wasn't a very long time either. Basically, all of his old friends and acquaintances were still alive and well. The people of the Yi clan were watching Yi Shiwen's return from the sidelines. They were exceptionally excited. Initially, they thought that there was no hope. Who knew that Yi Shiwen would save the true martial school once again? However, the six-legged spider monster that followed behind Yi Shiwen still made everyone extremely fearful and horrified. Although they knew that it was subdued by Yi Shiwen, they would never forget its ferocious appearance when it swept across the true martial school. Little junior brother, I have troubled you again this time. Sigh, I am really useless. I can't defend the true martial school at all. Huang Wuji said. Big senior brother, don't worry about it. These people, even in other worlds, belong to the top powerhouses. The worlds that were destroyed are not just these few. Yi Shiwen waved his hand and comforted him. Pass down the order. Let those who went to take refuge come back. Huang Wuji said to the people around him. Yi Shiwen nodded slightly. He had already thought about it. Huang Wuji must have arranged a backup plan. Although they might not be the opponents of these extraterrestrial visitors, at least they could keep some seeds. Maybe one day in the future they could rebuild the true martial school. After all, many days had passed since Yuhua Boundary and other worlds were destroyed. They had already received the news. Big senior brother, this guy will guard the true martial school in the future. As long as there is no turmoil of this level, there should be no problem, said Yi Shiwen. When everyone in the true martial school heard this, they were really surprised and happy. They didn't expect that Yi Shiwen actually had such an idea when he subdued the six-legged spider monster. Although the six-legged spider monster was suppressed by Yi Shiwen, everyone was also very clear that it was not that the six-legged spider monster was too weak, but Yi Shiwen was too strong. If they could have the help of such a powerhouse, then the true martial school would really be as stable as Mount Tai in the future. In addition to Yi Shiwen's existence, they might be able to survive this turmoil this time. The terrifying turmoil this time had truly made them realize how weak they were. In this world, there were existences that were far stronger than them. Looking at the faces of these old friends, Yi Shiwen also had a stomach full of words to say, but he didn't have the time at this time because it was too urgent. According to the situation he understood, the withered corpse ancestor and the six-legged spider monster were far from the only ones who had ideas about the true martial school. It was just that the two of them came early. In fact, there would be a wave of myth masters coming later. Yes, it was a wave, not just one or two. For the true martial school, this was just the beginning of the real test. It was far from the time for them to relax. However, he didn't intend to tell these people because it was meaningless at all. Big senior brother, let's talk somewhere else, said Yi Shiwen. Huang Wuji saw that Yi Shiwen didn't have the slightest excitement after winning, and he suddenly realized that this matter was probably more serious than he thought. Otherwise, with Yi Shiwen's strength, he wouldn't have such an expression. He immediately put away the smile on his face and led Yi Shiwen to a secret room. "Little junior brother, is there any change?" asked Huang Wuji. Although Huang Wuji's cultivation was not as good as Yi Shiwen, it didn't mean that he was stupid. He immediately asked directly. Yi Shiwen glanced at Huang Wuji and said, "Sure enough, I still can't hide it from big senior brother. In fact, it is far from just these two who came this time. There is still a large wave behind." Huang Wuji's complexion changed immediately. He also noticed Yi Shiwen's choice of words. It was a wave. Moreover, it was a huge wave. Just these two had already turned the true martial school upside down. Not to mention, there was still a large wave of experts coming from behind. Does the heavens really want my true martial school to die? Even with Huang Wuji's firm mind, he couldn't help but change his expression at this time. "Little junior brother, so even you can't do anything," said Huang Wuji. "In fact, if it is just an ordinary master, I can kill as many as I want. However, the masters of this realm are different. The masters of this realm are in the myth realm, almost the same cultivation as the founder of the true martial school," said Yi Shiwen. Although he didn't know how strong the founder of the true martial school was at that time, he could see from the true martial stone sword that the founder of the true martial school was probably an extremely powerful myth realm master. Chapter 2044. After going to the ancient desolation, Yi Shiwen found out that the founder of the true martial school and the other patriarch-level figures of various worlds weren't from this universe. They had retreated from the ancient desolation. After arriving at the Yi clan, Yi Shiwen had tried his best to investigate the origin of the true martial domain. However, according to the information he obtained, it was a very distant history. In fact, it was even more distant than the era of the rise of the kings. There were only a few records that mentioned this matter. In that distant era, the human race's situation was far less superior than it was now. They weren't even one of the overlords of the ancient desolation. After the war that destroyed the rule of the demon race, the Qin Emperor brought some of the ancestors of the human race back to the heaven realm. The rest of the people chose to stay in the ancient desolation and survived with difficulty. Due to various reasons, they didn't return to the heaven realm. At that time, it was still the ancient desolation. Although the high-level forces of the demon race were destroyed by the Qin Emperor, the remaining forces were still far stronger than the weak humans at that time. At that time, the ancestors of the human race were really fighting against the heavens and the earth. Even so, they were constantly defeated under the suppression of the demon race. It was almost the time for the extinction of the race. Under such circumstances, the higher-ups of the human race decided to send some experts to bring some of their clansmen to other small worlds. These people were the founder of the true martial school and the others. In order to prevent the demon race from counterattacking and killing their way into these worlds, they sealed the passage to the ancient desolation in the true martial domain. Later on, the people of the true martial domain cut off contact with the ancient desolation. Slowly, these matters became the secrets of the ancient times. Although many experts knew that they weren't the aboriginals of this world, they weren't very clear about their own origins. Under the leadership of the founder of the true martial school and a group of experts, a battle broke out with the aboriginals of this universe that lasted for countless years. Finally, the aboriginals of this world were wiped out and they occupied this universe. However, at that time, hundreds of thousands of years had passed. No one remembered the existence of another world, nor did they know what the situation was like in the primordial era. Even the founder of the true martial school and the others were not willing to talk about this sad matter at that time. Perhaps in their opinion, the clansmen who were still in the desolate antiquity had been completely annihilated. As time passed, this period of contact was severed just like that. From what Yi Shiwen had learned, the human race did not perish after they sent some of their experts to seek refuge in the true martial realm. On the contrary, the situation had changed tremendously in ancient times. The demon race, which was originally the overlord, was challenged by the 100 Races Alliance and the Sea Race, giving the human race a chance to rise in the end. In addition, in the countless years that followed, many heroes emerged from the human race. There were even 4 titled kings who had proven their Tao. This truly laid the foundation for the human race to become a powerful overlord. On the contrary, not only was it not destroyed, it even became the overlord of the ancient desolate era. This was something that no one had expected. As the saying goes, man proposes, God disposes. So, he was also very curious why the true martial school and the emergent school, which were obviously not much in terms of strength, had amazing inheritances and such incomparably powerful martial instruments. It was because their origins were extraordinary. Huang Wuji's face suddenly changed. Although he did not know the realm of the founder, he also knew from the ancient books that it was an earth-shattering power, a terrible power that could almost destroy all directions. Back then, the founder relied on such strength to lead the human race out of the siege of countless aborigines, and slowly opened up the foundation of the true martial realm. There was not only one of them, but a large group of them. Without a doubt, this was almost a disaster. And now, my combat power has just touched the edge of that realm. If these two are just existences who have just reached this realm, then I can still deal with them. However, I don't know how many of them are at the peak of this realm. I'm afraid I can't deal with them. Yi Shiwen said with a bitter smile. What should we do? Then don't let those disciples who left first come back. Huang Wuji said quickly. And Yi Shiwen nodded. After the storm is over, let them come back. If the crisis is resolved, it doesn't matter if they come back, but if there is no other way, then they are the last seeds of the true martial school, the last hope. That's the only way, Huang Wuji said helplessly. For an ambitious person like him, if he wasn't facing a desperate situation, he definitely wouldn't show such an expression. Brother, why don't you leave too and take refuge? I'm not completely sure, Yi Shiwen said. Huang Wuji immediately shook his head and said, No, everyone can leave, but I can't. I am the true martial school's schoolmaster. It's fine if I can't keep the foundation passed down by my ancestors, but I can't live without purpose like this. Brother, you are muddle-headed. Even if the true martial school needs to be rebuilt in the future, senior strength will be indispensable, Yi Shiwen said quickly. Little brother, I know very well how much strength I have. Let me stay. Even if the school needs to be rebuilt in the future, there will be others who will be responsible. As long as you are here, the fire of our true martial school will never be extinguished. Huang Wuji smiled bitterly and said, The true martial school only has schoolmasters who died in battle. There has never been a schoolmaster who ran away. There has never been such a precedent in the past, and it will not start with me. Brother, you are really… Yi Shiwen really had no other way, but forget it. Anyway, it may not become like this. Maybe there is still a chance. Huang Wuji's eyes lit up, and he immediately asked, Little brother, do you have any way? Yi Shiwen's eyes were extremely sharp, and he said, Since they are here, then we can only fight them to the death. Apart from that, there is no other way. If we can kill them all, then the crisis of the school will naturally be resolved. Yi Shiwen said. But little brother, you just said that in that realm, you are just at the bottom. How can you compete with those top figures? Huang Wuji said immediately. Yi Shiwen sighed and said, Now that things have come to this, do you think I have any other way? I can only fight to the death. Little brother, if you can't do it, you should leave by yourself. You are the last hope of our true martial school. If you also die, then who will rebuild the true martial school? Huang Wuji said after taking a few deep breaths. He was already very clear that compared to Yi Shiwen, the entire true martial school and even the entire true martial domain were not worth mentioning at all. As long as Yi Shiwen was there, then the true martial school could be rebuilt, but if even Yi Shiwen was gone, then the future of the true martial school would be like a candle in the wind, and it could be destroyed at any time. Yi Shiwen smiled and said, "Big brother, you are planning to die, and now you want me to be afraid of death and run away? How is this being afraid of death? This is leaving a useful body." Huang Wuji had just said this, and suddenly remembered that this was what Yi Shiwen had persuaded him just now. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. How should he say this? "Don't worry. This time I'm going to keep them here. It's not completely hopeless. It may be very difficult, but I won't give up as long as there's even a little bit of hope," Yi Shiwen said firmly. His eyes were filled with the results of thousands of calculations. "This time I will beat all of them until they are afraid. In this way they will know how to restrain themselves." Yi Shiwen knew that it was useless to say anything to these mysterious realm and myth masters who had already gone crazy. He could only kill them until they were afraid, and kill them until they really woke up. "What is the plan?" Huang Wuji asked a little eagerly. He knew that Yi Shiwen was not a match for those people, so he also wanted to know what kind of method he would use to achieve it. "Big brother, you will know when the time comes. Now I still need Big brother's help," Yi Shiwen said. "Speak then. As long as this foolish brother can help, even if it takes this foolish brother's life, it's also fine," Huang Wuji said. Yi Shiwen looked at Huang Wuji, moved his mouth, and secretly transmitted his voice. Huang Wuji only hesitated for a moment and immediately said, "Don't worry, leave this matter to me. This time, I will definitely do a good job for you. There are not many things we can do, but this is the only thing we can help you with." "In that case, I am relieved. Big brother, when the time comes, just gather these things, I will naturally come to collect them." "No problem." Huang Wuji patted his chest and said. "That being the case, I'll go and prepare first. I won't say much. As for this six-legged spider monster, I'll leave it to you. Although it was subdued by me, but if you want it to be willing to work for you in the future, then you must treat it well," Yi Shiwen said. Huang Wuji nodded. "Don't worry, we understand. Little brother, you can go ahead." "Then I am leaving." After Yi Shiwen finished speaking, he tore open a space crack, and his entire person disappeared in the space crack. When he appeared again, he was already on top of a large hall, looking at the huge figure from afar. It was the star beast, and on the other side, the chubby young Kuan Pung was rolling on the ground like a playful child. Yi Shiwen took a deep breath and said, "Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used in one day. Now is the time to use you." Chapter 2045. "Kid, what kind of trouble did you encounter that you need us to take action?" Star Beast opened its big bell-like eyes and said. Over the years, his injuries had been recovering at an astonishing speed. When Yi Shiwen came to the Devil King's treasure house again, he had already recovered to the myth realm. He was even stronger than Yi Shiwen had imagined. No wonder he had been able to turn the true martial school upside down. He had directly fallen from his peak state. Who knew how much it had taken to pull him down from his high horse? When the little Kuan Ping saw Yi Shiwen coming over, it quickly flapped its wings and flew to Yi Shiwen's shoulder, rubbing against him intimately. Compared to the sophisticated star beast, the little Kuan Ping on Yi Shiwen's body was much simpler. Although it looked like a little foodie, Yi Shiwen knew how powerful this Kuan Ping was. Kuan Ping had been a peerless powerhouse for generations. Originally, it was much more difficult for such a peerless powerhouse to grow up than ordinary people. It was just that Yi Shiwen fed it with countless elixirs, so its growth was naturally accelerated. What was devouring the mountains and rivers? Even Yi Shiwen did not dare to devour the elixirs in the sky so recklessly, but Koan Ping dared to. Even Star Beast Avatar was very envious of this instinct to devour the world. Star Beast Avatar lived by devouring the world, but it was still incomparable to Koan Ping. He had the bloodline of the wild beast from ancient times. Because of the purity of his bloodline, he was even more powerful now. Yi Shiwen also knew this. There was also the inheritance of Star Beast in his bloodline. He had vaguely awakened some memories, so he more or less knew some things in the distant past. There were countless powerful vicious beasts like the Star Colossus in the distant ancient wilderness. The Star Colossus was only one of them. But Koan Ping was the leader of the top 10 ancient fierce beasts. It was infamous and ranked as the master of many demon beasts. Its status was respected and could not be mentioned in the same breath. Naturally, the current little Koan Ping had not grown to that kind of earth-shattering strength. But even so, with the rapid improvement of his realm, his strength was also improving at an astonishing speed. It was a complete improvement of several times. Yi Shiwen had always been paying attention to this matter. Although his deity was not here, he was the master of the Devil King's treasure house after all. There was always some spiritual connection, so it was not that he did not know anything. Yi Shiwen didn't conceal anything. He explained the current situation of the true martial world. Then, he said, I've also been forced into a dead end. Those people have gone mad. They've gone mad for the so-called God's inheritance. Yi Shiwen didn't hide anything. Yi Shiwen knew very well that there had never been a deity-level expert in this place. Even if there were some incomplete inheritances, they were obtained by accident. Not just a few God-level cultivation techniques could be called a legacy. What was a legacy? A legacy was something that could nurture a person from the very beginning, the lowest level, into a god. Only then could it be called a legacy. Only those who were able to cultivate a complete legacy of all kinds of cultivation techniques were qualified to be called an immortal legacy. These sporadic and incomplete techniques of the gods, or the occasional complete techniques, were nothing to him. However, it did not matter to these people. Anyway, they were not the ones who had suffered countless casualties. They would rather kill the wrong people than let them go. After all, they had not suffered any losses. However, in general, only those individual cultivators and mysterious realm experts were targeting the gods' graveyard and the Ragnarok of the gods. That was the only battlefield where they truly wanted to dominate. This was the fundamental reason why Yi Shiwen was so confident. Otherwise, if the Divine Union leader and other powerful experts came, Yi Shiwen would have no other choice but to escape with the true martial school. However, he was more worried that his presence would attract legendary existences like the Divine Union's leader. If that happened, the true martial school would definitely be destroyed. Now that things had come to this, he had no other choice. If he did not take action, the destruction of the true martial school was only a matter of time. He had no other choice. Now that things had come to this, he could only fight. The calm before the storm seemed especially eerie at this moment. In the silent and boundless void of the universe, the true martial domain was like a huge ball of light. Boom! Suddenly, the void cracked open, and a big hand came out of the void and grabbed towards the true martial world. The speed of the hand was extremely fast, and divine might overflowed in all directions. "Who's there?" A cold shout came from the true martial school, and a scroll came out, protecting the entire true martial domain. Boom! An incomparably powerful and frightening force surged in the void, sweeping out in circles. It was unknown how many stars were shattered into pieces. This was a collision between demigods. "Humph, you still want to protect it?" Another cold voice was heard. A huge claw covered half of the sky and grabbed towards the true martial domain, as if it wanted to smash the true martial domain on the spot. Another fist energy soared into the sky from the true martial world. It shattered everything, and fiercely collided with this huge claw. It was another dreadful collision between demigods. Everyone in the true martial domain could only look on helplessly at the earth-shattering collision outside the domain. There was nothing they could do because they knew very well that everything they had was too fragile in front of such a mighty force. In fact, it was so fragile that it couldn't protect them at all. However, this figure wasn't the only one. Soon, a third terrifying figure appeared. A big fiery red hand stretched out from the void. It was vast and boundless. It was hard to tell whether it was thousands of miles or tens of thousands of miles. Then, it smashed down towards the true martial world. This time, not only the martial artists, but even the ordinary people could see this monstrous hand with their naked eyes. Everyone held their breath. There were many ordinary people in the depths of the mountain village who did not know what was happening. They were scared out of their wits when they saw this scene. Is this the end of the world? From the legends of their ancestors, it seemed that there was an extremely terrifying turbulence in the past hundreds of years. Is it going to repeat this time? They did not know that the turbulence this time was 1,000 times, 10,000 times more terrifying than the turbulence in the legends of their ancestors in the past. There was another roar in the true martial school. They opened their mouths, and a sword aura whistled out. The terrifying sword aura directly slashed towards the huge hand. Rumble! The sword aura directly slashed the huge hand, not giving it a chance to approach the true martial school. Yi Shiwen, I didn't expect you to be hiding here. When I first got the news, I didn't believe it. Now I believe it, but it's useless. Do you think you can stop all of us? Don't think that you are qualified to fight with us just because you made Ting Yaoyang self-destruct. Yes, where is the ancient ancestor religious leader? Let him come out. Only he is qualified to fight with us. In the void, a cold voice resounded. It represented a cold figure that vaguely appeared in the universe. That incomparably powerful aura swept in all directions. They're here. In the true martial school, Yi Shiwen opened his eyes. His eyes were incomparably cold and firm. Don't go too far. I will protect this place, Yi Shiwen said faintly. His voice was like a great bell that spread throughout the world. With just you? You still want to protect this world? You won't live past today. You won't be able to protect the world you want to protect. Another figure appeared in the void. Yi Shiwen's gaze swept over. This was the 10th mythical expert that appeared. Such a lineup would cause headaches even for a colossus like the Heaven Wasteland Temple. They might even suffer a great loss. Not to mention dealing with a mere true martial domain. It was too huge. Any one of these people could easily destroy a world. But at this time, they were all gathered together. One could imagine how much pressure Yi Shiwen was under now. The most terrifying thing was that this was just the beginning. In one breath, more than 30 mythical experts had appeared. Even Yi Shiwen couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. More than 30 legendary experts, even if all of them were at the first level of Paong realm, this would still be an incomparably terrifying battle. Not to mention, among these people, there were existences beyond the level of withered corpse old ancestor. Among them, there were 3 ice-cold figures that made people shudder. Not only were they in the mythical realm, but they were also top-notch existences at the 9th level of the Paong realm. Even if they weren't as strong as the Divine Union leader, the Heaven Wasteland Temple Master, and the others, they were still powerful existences. Such existences were only half a step away from becoming legendary god-level existences. Such talents had just appeared, but their monstrous pressure was enough to make the yin-yang life and death diagram that was protecting the true martial domain show signs of breaking apart. I want to see, Yi Shiwen, what makes you think you can protect this world? The one who spoke was one of the 3 terrifying existences at the 9th level of the Paong realm. It was an ancient corpse with a monstrous corpse chi. This ancient corpse had already cultivated the corpse Tao to the most terrifying extent. No one knew how powerful it was. This ancient corpse had several iron chains wrapped around it. These iron chains were engraved with complicated runes. It was unknown who had engraved them, but they seemed to have been used to suppress this ancient corpse. However, this ancient corpse had finally broken through and appeared in this world, stirring up trouble. That is, could it be Shi Wuming, who once stirred up a storm in the Xian world tens of thousands of years ago? In the true martial world, that six-legged spider monster no longer had a calm look on its face, and suddenly cried out in alarm, "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."